promoting some other content, but I do recognize you by clicking on your name and seeing that you've talked here before. No, I remember. So it's if it was the only thing someone ever said, like they just come into the stream and the first and only message is a game rock recommendation. Oh, it's just $4. It's the best $4 I ever spent. I would find that sus. But oh, you were Lucky Laddie. Oh, okay. I would have been more likely to recognize that, I think. We're going to play some music because there's still time and I don't want to listen to the PoE song, as awesome as it is. We have some pretty awesome tunes here in the playlist. And yeah, welcome everyone to the Thursday evening stream. I have been busy. I know you guys, if you've been tuning in, you know, but like for those of you who are here the first time in a long time, I want to just let everyone know, you know, I didn't give up on everything. I didn't leave anything behind. I just needed some time away to sort out real life issues. But this time for real, as I've sorted out the job situation, and I will probably, if I sign the contract next week, I will be starting that apprenticeship, which means in the short run, I'll have less time and less energy for content for sure, but in the long run it means more and better content because I was on a safe road either into a mental hospital or complete poverty and homelessness, or both. Right. Am I getting drunk today? I'm never getting drunk. Fuck alcohol. Kind of the worst thing you can do to your body, honestly. I'm done condoning that shit. I mean, maybe I'll have a sip. But no, like, it's really not, for me, alcohol is not very enjoyable. Yeah, to each their own. Like, on the whole, alcohol is not a very satisfying experience for me, right? Like, sure, there's something I can enjoy about the buzz, and there's definitely something about the culture that I enjoy, right? Like, I love beers taste-wise and culture-wise, and, like, I like a good whiskey and all that, right? But I also think that alcohol is, like, one of the worst intoxicating substances that you can consume on a regular basis, and it's, like, so absurd how widely accepted and even glorified it is, whereas like other things are illegal. Anyway, whatever numbs the pain, right? Like, and see, I'm not in your shoes, right? Like, I don't know what floats your particular boat, right? Like, and what is one man's waste is another man's soap, they say. So also, welcome Chaotix. How are you doing? Welcome. Wait, I have trouble because my consolidated chat is failing today, so I'm quickly making sure that I can one man's see everything. Right. I'm gonna make the Twitch chat bigger, obviously, because I need to see all that Twitch chat. Right. Like this, and oh, I also need to see the alerts then. Wait, we can put the YouTube chat here on the bottom. Give me a second. I just need a pop out YouTube chat so I can read that as well and respond to eventual questions. And then we got like a huge Twitch chat where you guys can reign supreme. So, right. Welcome, Ra Gallert. Welcome, Paleo DM. Wait, I also need to zoom in. I can't read this shit. Twitch chat's way too small by default. Do I have to do the exclamation mark drops? No, you have to just read the exclamation mark drops in order to know what you have to do for the drops. And you have to throw down your vaporizer. That's like, there's the link to pathofexile.com/myaccount/Twitch that you need to click, and then you get here, but you do need to be logged in, and you also have to wait until the servers are restarted, but then it should be possible. And then you can link your account there if it's not there yet. But if you've gotten Twitch drops in the past for Path of Exile, then you probably did link your account in the past. It does start when the announcement goes live, right? That's correct. How's the level of excitement? Pretty excited, honestly. But the thing is, I'm always excited about these events and announcements. Like, I just have a huge sympathy for the game and the creators, and I've been following this game almost religiously for a decade now. So, yeah, I'm maybe slightly biased, but I also do think that, you know, last league marked a turning point. Marked a turning point, because Mark made sure that everyone knows that they do give a shit, and I think they realize that they need to, like, that their actions speak louder than words. And while last league was already full of amazing quality of life changes and great steps forward, and also concessions, like things that we previously didn't think they were willing to do in Path of Exile, we'll get even more of those right now. And I mean, like, a lot of insane things have already been confirmed in the teasers, like the increase of the item pickup range, so you don't have to like zigzag around all over the screen all the time, but your character can actually pick up things at like an arm length, right, or a leg length, sort of, so you don't need to do all these micro movements to pick up like a whole bunch of items, like a pile of items that is on one spot from like one pack. You can pretty much stand in the middle and you don't have to move, and you can pick it all up. I mean, much more so than you were able to do previously. And that is, like I said, already confirmed. We know that for sure. So there's probably going to be a whole lot of other things that we don't know about yet. And yeah, I also personally have like big hopes, since this is likely the last league that they're going to do before Path of Exile 2 early access happens. This is also sort of like a legacy league, like a you know, burn all the midnight oil that you still have, kind of. And it, I mean, listen, we could be wrong, right? But I think this is going to be a generous league, because last league Expedition was also sort of an experimental league. Sure, they wanted to give us something like really generous with the item creator from Necropolis, and they also. They wanted to make it feel really PvE. Like, they knew Harvest was one of the crowd's favorite, the community's favorites, or for many people was one of the leagues where they played the most and where they made the most characters and the best items and so on. But ultimately, I think Necropolis fell flat because it was not very Path of Exile, right? Like, it was very experimental in the way that it integrated into your regular gameplay. Like, we've never had a league like that before, where you had to like look at a thing before you open the zone and then decide. And the way that it worked was very unique, right? Like, outside of the thing that you collected things in the map that you then used for crafting. And also, it didn't have any like specific like encounters, like no bosses, no new monsters, nothing. Like, it just enhanced existing monsters. So yo, what up, CB? How are you doing? You ready?
This league is getting a gauntlet no matter what. And we've been told by GGG that I will get access to crossing bosses. So, for example, something I might be able to do is, while the Exarch has the meteor stage, right, the like zooming meteors, I might be able to have that just last indefinitely until you kill a boss. So imagine Uberzeri spawns in the fire stage and you have to kill Uberzeri while the fire is going on. That might be something I'm able to do. And I was thinking, like, if... here's an idea I had. If Ubers are still super inaccessible and really bad, why don't I just make the normal bosses Ubers and harder than Ubers, so that they are still really accessible but almost impossible to do? That was what I was thinking. Like, there's no need for
That's
the
awesome.
Ubers to actually be involved in the gauntlet at all. I can make my own Ubers. Like, imagine if you're doing
That is awesome.
this league is getting a gauntlet no matter what. And
I want that so badly. Like all the bosses are Uber bosses now. I want that in the game right now so I can practice the bosses. Yeah, much love, Zizran. I hope you do that. All right. Twitch going crazy, said Chaotix. Oh, I need to do a preview here. I'm always like, wait, one more last administrational thing for the stream. Like, put my stream preview on the television and put away the mouse for the streaming PC. Basically, I'm always grabbing the wrong mouse and the wrong keyboard. Like, let's also switch the keyboards now, so I can finally just focus on the gaming PC. Wonder if that would include Voidstone bosses to probably inherit regular boss fights. I have no idea what you mean that. How you mean that? What? Oh, you mean they don't have because no. What? I don't know what you mean. Yeah, you just watched a lot of, you reached a lot of 3-stream watch streaks. If you make the regular bosses hard or harder than Uber, then Voidstone fights might also have the mods. What do you mean with Voidstone fights? You mean the fights that you do for the Voidstones, aka Exarch and Eater? Which Exarch and Eater would also be stronger. And they would be their Uber versions. I thought that was the idea. That like I'm just like extremely stupid right now. Post more ads so you do less ads for an hour. Yeah, we can spam the ads. I just don't want like I don't want to throw people under the bus. Like I can't even here. See, I can't even spam ads because I think the way it's set up, I can't do it, right? Like it says I can't run an ad because I recently ran one, so I need to wait until the cooldown comes off. Yes, that's what he was saying. Yeah, he replaces the regular bosses with the Uber versions, the corresponding Uber versions. So, and then what were you saying? That's what I'm not getting. Like, because you were like, what do you mean you wonder if that includes Voidstone bosses? I mean, that's why I'm so confused, because I thought it was very clear. Like, whether, like, if we have the same understanding of what Voidstone bosses are, then it's very clear from what Zizran said, then that would be included. You will not get the Atlas Tree and Scarabs. You will not get Wildwood Ascendancies. They clarified that. Yes. Did Crucial say we would? We're saying the Quest Eater, Exarch. Oh, right. Right. Because the Quest one can't be rolled and all that. Yeah, I mean, I guess that is up to him to decide. What would you prefer, out of curiosity? Or would you prefer the Voidstones to be accessible, or would you prefer them to be just as hard as when you do them the second time? Accessible is better, more fun for more people. Yeah, I also feel like it would be more fun if you have the Void Stones already, like to farm up to get ready for the Uber versions. So it's like you do one regular fight that is non-Uber, and then it's only Ubers from then on. I mean, 2. Are the servers back up? Can we go over the teasers? Like I want to do a recap of the teasers. Oh wait, oh, you don't even need to. So okay, we'll just go over all of these again, right?
Hi. Game Director on Path of Exile. This is the first in a series of videos covering upcoming changes in our 3.25 expansion, The Settlers of Kalguur. In 3.25, reservation effects, such as heralds and auras, persist through death, allowing you to get right back into combat as fast as possible.
Does that mean they literally persist through death? Like when you're dead, they're still active? Can you like support your party with your auras when you're dead? Probably not. But yeah, but they automatically activate again when you resurrect. So, what does Kalguur go live? Yeah, it's next week Friday evening. It's like wow, what the fuck is this? Why is there no calendar windows? But yeah, the July the whatever it is, 25th, 26th? 26th probably, if I can math correctly. So, Harvest.
Hi, I'm Mark Roberts, Game Director on Path of Exile. We've got a tiny quality of life improvement today. In the Settlers of Kalguur update, you can start harvest encounters with just a single action. And yes, we made a whole video about it, just because our marketing team said so. You can find out more about
The marketing team said so. That's good.
And yes, we made a whole...
Yeah, one single click. How many clicks did you need before? You clicked it once and the other one molded? No, like rotted away. I can't come up with the word. Wilted? Wilted, yeah. And the other one, you had to click again, right? So it's not a lot of time saved because there was not like a time in between, like clicking one and clicking it again to activate it, but still, it's a click saved, which was unnecessary.
Hi, I'm Mark Roberts, Game Director on Path of Exile. This time around, we're bringing a few improvements from Path of Exile 2 back to the OG. In 3.25, you'll no longer need to interact with waypoints to unlock them.
That's so huge. Like, how many times have I, like, accidentally not picked up a waypoint and then only realized later when I was going to go back to a zone in order to pick up, like, a skipped side quest or something like that, right? That was so ass. Also, when you like didn't pick up the waypoint because you like didn't want to click, like you were chased by a pack of monsters, right? And like you were kind of racing, like trying to go fast, and like missed the click on the waypoint, and then you didn't want to go back for it, and then you like died or DC'd afterwards and had to walk back all the time. That will also be a thing of the past because you just walk into the like relative vicinity of the waypoint, right? You don't even need to be on top of the waypoint. They made that very clear. Like this activates as soon as this guy is like over the bridge. So it's like a waypoint away from the waypoint even. If we can change the playback speed here to real slow. And yeah, before he... I need to pinpoint that again, dudes. This is huge radius. Yeah, it's almost as soon as he's off this bridge. Dude, look how far that is. That's more than the it's pretty much the radius of the waypoint, because the radius of the waypoint goes to here. This is the center. This is the radius. So it's pretty much exactly another diameter of the waypoint. Yeah, I should click on them sometimes with the teleport in the way. True. I didn't think of that because I don't usually share waypoints in party that much. Looks like they nerfed Mirage Archer. I would hope so. 6th map slot unlock? We don't know yet. You want my guess? Or do we know? No, we don't know, right?
I'm Mark Roberts, Game Director on Path of Exile. In the Settlers update, we've reworked item quality. The rarity of the item is no longer relevant when applying chisels, blacksmith's whetstones, and armorer's scraps to non-unique items. Instead, the amount of quality they provide is now based on the item level. Those currencies now apply 20% quality to very low-level equipment, with that amount reducing as the item level increases. This makes them much more appealing to use early game. You can...
Yeah, it makes them much more appealing to use early game. I wonder how much rarer it makes them early game, guys. Think about that, and think about like how often you needed whetstones in order to uptrade for baubles early on to quality your first flasks in maps. Oh, it's gonna be such a pain. Well, I mean, in trade you can just trade the pain away, but that is a pain in itself. You can see the green circle around the archer, small radius. Well, then it's still good on single target though. It's not so good for clear, but it will still like be huge on singles.
Hi, I'm Mark Roberts, Game Director on Path of Exile. We've got more news about item quality today. Quality bonuses on armor and weapons are now multiplicative. In other words, weapons with full quality will give 20% more physical damage.
I remember this. This is actually, that's what people hyped up as like the huge melee buff. The huge melee buff. I was calling that, you know, because all weapons get this, that essentially would be a bow buff. But I was calling that they're going to nerf all bow bases by at least 20% in order to just bring them down to where they were before, so that only melee weapons benefit from this quality change. I mean, I would be so happy if that's true. But yeah. I don't think there's any change to drop. People already complain in early game and campaigns, so making it worse would be counterproductive. Yeah, but they've repeatedly done that in the past, so I don't know why you would think that they change now. Yeah, exactly what Chaotic says. McFeely, all I have to do is for bows, is nerf Mana Forged Arrow. Yeah, oh, that's inevitably gonna happen. Oh, I liked Mana Forged in my Ruthless run, that was really nice. But then again, I mean, bows were good before Mana Forged, right? Like, bows were favorable before Mana Forged was introduced. You would have said it here if they're more rare. I'm not sure, honestly. Not sure.
Hi, I'm Mark Roberts, Game Director on Path of Exile. Today, we've got more improvements coming in hot from Path of Exile 2. We're adding static life bars to bosses.
I remember.
Not all bosses will have them initially, but we're starting with the pinnacle bosses and act bosses in 325.
But that's
you can
so
find
good,
out more.
because so often I find myself like dying or making mistakes in boss fights because I stare at the boss health bar while I'm hovering the boss. and I kind of don't want to move away because I'm looking at the life bar, and I don't want to look somewhere else because I know that the life bar is only visible in that moment and I won't see the life bar when I move away. And so like there's a really unhealthy relationship between me and looking at a boss's health during a fight. And I think having the health bar, now of course at first you could think that makes it worse because now you can always look at the life bar instead of what's going on. But I think I will look at the life bar less, knowing that I will always be able to look at the life bar if I happen to feel like it, right? Because it's always there, it's not going to go away. The range you can pick up items has been increased.
Hi,
Yeah,
I'm Mark Roberts,
this I already
Game
talked
Director
about.
on Path of Exile.
And this is something that was so, like, unlikely. Or not unlikely, I mean, it was highly desired for a long time, and, like, people, I think, almost gave up on it, because it's, like... But it's been brought up so many times in, like, dev interviews and in the struggle sessions when there was the, like, really negative community feedback around Expedition and all that. Like, people have always been pushing that point, and this is such a massive increase. Like, I mean, look at that. This is like, you can literally loot an entire pack by just standing in the middle now. It's the beginning of the end, yeah. Next league will be Diablo 4. Need auto pickup for currencies. I think I like not having that. Pickup key like GD. I don't know. Oh, okay. Yeah, that would be cool. Like having an alternative to like clicking so much. Like being able to like hover over something and pick it up by pressing the button. Or is that what you mean?
Hi, I'm Mark Roberts, Game Director on Path of Exile.
I think I haven't
In the
watched this
Seatless
one.
update, you might come across a new oil, found only in Blighted and Blight-ravaged maps. All the secret notables that can be anointed on your amulet now use this oil. We have added many more notables to that pool, like this one. Or this one.
Wait, I need to read those. Mixed munitions has increased cooldown recovery rate for throwing traps per mine detonated recently. Oh, I saw Vel's tweet about this. So this is like for minor trappers, I guess. And this is incorporeal. Elusive on you reduces in effect 50% slower. Elusive is removed from you at 20% effect. Oh, that's actually a huge buff to elusive, right? Because you have big elusive longer, and it ends, like it can recover its cooldown earlier, like before it is in the ultra useless stage. Like it cuts off the most useless part of the elusive buff and brings it into cooldown earlier, while actually making it a lot longer overall. Because normally it goes down to 0 effect, right? And from 20 to 0 effect, you wouldn't have that much benefit, but that's huge. I haven't seen this yet. I also haven't seen, like, I've been looking at Twitter, right? And seeing what people comment about it. Like, I've only seen the comment about the Jinx Juju anoint here, but... Auto pickup on click like Elise Shard would also be an option. One click per item, but no item hover and no mouse clicks. No hover even. So how does it know what to pick up?
Hi, I'm Mark Roberts, Game Director on Path of Exile. In 3.25, we're adding a 6th map device slot. This one was a bit of a nightmare for our UI designers. You don't want to see the prototypes. Or maybe you do.
Fifth and sixth is your first 10-way encounter with the Maven or completing your first tier 17. Like, oh, we need to do both. Okay. So we already know what it is. Completing 10-way or first tier 17. 6 link map device, you get all 6 slots and then need fusings to 6 link it. Yeah, and then some people are lucky and hit it on the first, and some people get fucked over and they need thousands. Yeah, that would be great. Good idea. Okay, yeah, bandit reward is also like a big one.
Hi.
Oh yeah, we can actually make a poll or something like that, right? Let's quickly let this run.
He will grant you plus 40 to maximum life. Helping Alera grants you 15% to all elemental resistances. And helping Kraton gives you 8% increased movement speed. If you choose to kill all 3, Eramir will give you 1 passive skill point. We have also changed the Through Sacred Ground quest in Act 2 to provide an additional passive skill point, so you can still get the same total number of skill points as before. You can find out more about 325 on July 18th at our GGG live event. See you then!
Alright, kill Alera, 40% Eliras, kill Oak, 40%, 42 life. Kill Kraton is, what is it, 8% movement speed, right? It's not 6%, it's 8%. MS. And then kill all 1 passive. Alright. Duration, 10 minutes. We can only do 10 minutes. Alright, here guys. You can decide whether you want to kill Alera, kill Oak, kill Kraton, or kill all. And we'll look at it in 10 minutes again, when everyone voted. Simulacrums, fewer waves, more opportunities for unique rewards, similar to cutting off the last little useless bit of the elusive buff.
Hi.
With that one mod. This one is cutting off the shitty first 15 waves from the simulacrum, and now you have only 15 waves in total to do, but those are the 15 that actually matter in terms of challenge and reward. So you don't have to be the, you know, the resident sleeper sitting there. Oh, also, how late is it? Oh, 10 minutes. Do we have GGG Live open? Path of Exile Twitch. Just make sure. Ooh. We're going there, guys. Going to town. We're gonna be eating good. Remember, no Path of Exile 2 is, announcements this time. We're strictly talking PoE 1. PoE 1 is taking the spotlight this time around. Can't decide, either Alera. I think Alera early and then respec into 1 point, or Kraton. Yeah, I think so. I think it was like a bad idea from a marketing point of view to force the people who were interested in PoE 1 announcement in League, especially like during a time where everyone was thirsting for some good news, to like to force everyone to watch PoE 2 when there was such a mixed reception for that idea. Like, I understand that they did it the first time around they did it, but like after that, I don't understand why they did it again. When everyone was so clearly against it, even the people who were in favor of PoE 2.
Hi, I'm Mark Roberts, Game Director on Path of Exile. Notice anything different about this map hover? In the Settlers of Kalguur update, you can
This is
hover
so
or
huge.
select a map at any time on your atlas to see which divination cards can drop there. You can find
This is such a huge layer of obscurity taken away from Path of
out
Exile.
more
with
about
that.
325 on
Because like previously, like if you started playing as a new player, like how would you like? I mean, in general, how you do anything without third-party resources, but specifically like divination cards is not something that you, I don't know, are likely to understand unless you look it up how it works. It's so ugly it has to be a toggle. I would hope that it is like I don't know. I don't think it's ugly per se. It's maybe obnoxious when you don't want to see it. Like it's a lot of like visual stuff. I wouldn't say it's ugly. Yeah, I think it's also nice. I also love the diff card art. Like in general, I'm in favor of showing this more because you only really see it when you hover it, when you get a diff card. Like all the 2D art for diff cards like in your inventory is the same like silly card graphic, and I always felt like really enjoying the diff card art was some like a pay to win feature, pay to enjoy feature for which you needed the diff card tab. And so now like having a little bit more exposure to that in game, I think it's great. Like again, I always think of the player who doesn't like to look things up, like who doesn't want to spoil himself, but at the same time is trying to understand the game naturally. And I think like showing people all the cards that you can get is really helpful in that. Because let's be real, like, how many of you guys didn't know where which card was in which patch? Like, first of all, it always changes around because of like availability of maps on the atlas and like in general patch changes, right? And then on top of that, like you really only like know the couple of cards that you care about, like in the maps that you care about, and you didn't know anything about any others. And like looking it up is tedious and boring, and I think it's great to have that in game. No doctor anymore? Yeah, people pointed that out. Like there was a bunch of jokes about a bunch of obvious jokes about Dr. Disrespect. And that, you know, GGG cancelled the card or something like that, but
Hi, I'm Mark Roberts, Game Director on Path of Exile. In the Settlers update, Valdo's puzzle boxes will be far more common. We've had to balance the value of each box to be a little worse, but opening boxes is fun, so we've made them more available. Don't worry though, we've kept the total number of Mage Bloods introduced into the economy from Valdo's puzzle boxes identical.
yeah. Okay, so more Valdos, fewer Mageblood maps in them. I think Valdos are fun.
Hi, I'm Mark Roberts, Game Director on Path of Exile. In Settlers of Kalguur, you might stumble across strange new encounters in Tier 16 and Tier 17 in-game maps. One such encounter is the Wildwood, from the Affliction League.
This I'm curious about, because what other leagues are gonna come back as like super juice for tier 16, 17 maps? Like hopefully we're getting some Sentinel Recombinator action. I want that so badly. And, you know, seeing that this is the last league before, potentially the last league before early access. I mean, never say never, but... And yeah, Just do it, GGG. Just one time, be generous. I mean, they are generous, but like in game, I mean. I consider bad uniques are good in SSF, GSF. Oh, right. See them more often and actually open them yourself if they aren't worth so much. Yeah, absolutely. Never found a Valdos this entire league? That bad? Really? I had no idea. Found one Valdo box, also where the were pouring keys. Probably in the void, waiting to be born. No idea. That's crazy, ZB. Like, you generally play a crazy amount of Path of Exile. Beta should be released mid 326 if I were to guess. I mean, probably. I would suppose that they're not going to be done with the beta or like early access PoE 2 on time. That they feel like we need some more time and that they're gonna postpone it to after Christmas. Because Christmas is a very rough deadline for them to keep, I think, for that. Even though, you know, it's already been postponed once, but they've said in the past that it's done when it's done, right? Like they're not under pressure to put out PoE 2 in a rough state because they got PoE 1 going for them, right? And especially if this league is a success, I could totally see them. Yeah, maybe they're doing another like whole league. All right, guys, 1 minute. Should we switch the mission, the music, and get ready? Dude, I'm already so tired. I need to drink water, probably dehydrate. I'm gonna get a drink while we wait for this timer to go down. But one moment, I'm gonna enable the audio. You guys make sure you get your Twitches linked, right? So you can get those sweet drops. And you let me know whether this volume is good. I think this is good. Do you want to see the YouTube chat, the Twitch chat, or not? We could do like a full screen theater mode, like this, right? That way my cam is also not on the game. Just quickly getting my glass.
Hi, I'm Chris Wilson from Grinding Gear Games. Welcome to GGG Live. Today, we're going to show you an exclusive reveal of Path of Exile Settlers of Kalguur, which launches next week on July 26th. Twitch drops are enabled on today's live stream, so make sure you follow the instructions below in order to claim your Corsair back attachment. In today's stream, we will take you on a deep
Yo,
dive
Chris,
into the new
you're
Settlers
our
of Kalguur
hero.
Challenge League. We'll cover the league mechanics, its new and revised crafting systems, a new trade market system for currency, some sweeping balance improvements including 2 Ascendancy class changes, endgame improvements, some further additions to the campaign, and some quality of life features. We'll then talk about our console native port releases and the features that come alongside them. Finally, we'll show you our new supporter
Like
packs,
this or
ending with
louder?
a live Q&A session where Ziggy D will ask Path of Exile's game director Mark your questions from Twitch chat. After the live stream, we'll drop the full patch notes. I'll hand over to Mark now to introduce the new league.
We've really innovated with the content in this league, and I'm really excited to see what everyone thinks. So let's just get right into it with the trailer for Path of Exile, Settlers of Kalguur.
All right, guys. Are you ready? I'm so ready. Gold added. Yeah, and you can buy it for real money.
Land. You'd have to be mad to settle here. And yet... Welcome to King's March! It's not much yet, but with your help, we can erect the greatest city Rayclast has ever seen. We'll need resources and savvy planning.
It is settling time.
Soon we'll attract settlers, craftsmen, fortune seekers, and of
Fortunes.
course, pirates. But if
All right.
we prevail, our ships will be heavy with gold. We hope to achieve the impossible. We hope to build a home.
Okay, we need to know how this works exactly. Respec with gold. Oh, no way. It's there. It's literally in the game right now. No more regrets. Warden Ascendancy class. Gladiator rework. Wait, we do get Warden Ascendancies. Massive melee rebalance. It is here, guys. Endgame improvements. Login melee. And much more. Okay. Wow, what is that? What were these black items with the colorful stuff? Oh my god. Let's go. My body is ready.
In Path of Exile Settlers of Kalguur, you will encounter some familiar faces from the Expedition League. Danig, Rog, Tujin, and
Rog
Gwenin
champ.
are Kalguuran people who are trying to establish trade between Rayclast and their homeland. They have recruited many curious characters from Rayclast, including some you may recognize, but are also seeking help of a powerful exile, like yourself. You will first encounter Johan, the King's Hand in Lionized Watch. He's there recruiting workers, traders, and exiles. Johan, under the command of the King of Kalguur, has been sent here to build a new city called King's March, which intends to become the hub of commerce between Rayclast and Kalguur. Soon, he will bring you to the planned site for King's March, which you'll notice has humble beginnings as just a tavern in a field. But with your help, it won't stay like this for long. It takes a lot to build a town. The Kalguurans will ask you to seek out resources that can be used to begin construction.
What is this?
On your adventures, you might find minerals such as crimson iron, which are veins of iron that have been overrun with corruption, spawning dangerous foes when you approach.
Okay.
Or perhaps orichalcum, which you will have to liberate from the demons worshipping it. Petrified amber attracts mindless, blighted enemies,
Okay.
while bismuth has a strong affinity to the elements and causes the area to become unstable. If
Okay.
you're lucky, you might find vericium, a material as valuable as it is dangerous, and guarded by very powerful foes.
Okay.
Once you defeat these monsters, the deposit will automatically be tagged for mining. But first, we need to get someone to do the hard
So you
labor.
farm the resources yourself.
This is, of course, a trade expedition and nothing is free. Miners, along with other workers that the Kalguurans have hired, must be paid in cold, hard gold, which you'll notice is now dropping throughout Rayclast. You will have control about who gets hired into your enterprise. Once you have accumulated some gold, head to the town and talk to the recruiter, Rauf. He's been busy tracking down hardy folk across Rayclast who are looking for work.
Alright. So
You'll
heist
notice each
aspect as
person
well.
has their specialties and a wage cost. It'll be up to you to hire and fire as you please. Over the course of the league, you'll be searching for your perfect employees for each job. Once you have them, you'll have to keep them paid, safe, and alive, which we'll get into later.
Is this a
Here
mini
we have a
bootleg
prospect
steamer?
who has a specialty in mining. We'll start with that so we can begin to retrieve some of those resources we were talking about earlier. Let's go find some ore and put our miner to use. Oh, we've found a vein of orichalcum ore. It's guarded by
Orichalcum.
dangerous demons worshipping a strange shrine. The shrine buffs the demons, giving them power. But once you defeat them, you can seize that power for yourself. After
Alright.
that, we can tag the ore, and our mining specialist will get to work. Soon, we encounter a few more deposits, each
So
with a
it's-
different dangerous encounter.
Yeah, so it's like Delve, but with enemy
After you have
encounters.
tagged the mineral veins, your miners
then
will
you
get
got
to work
your-
collecting resources in real time.
Minerals.
They might take a while, but will continue whether you are logged in or not. The work can be sped up by hiring more or better miners, and by
okay.
upgrading the mining station back in Kingsmarch to equip them with advanced
So you're
pickaxes.
only clearing the
Alright.
vein
Some
for
time
them
has
to farm
passed
it.
and our miners have been able to get the resources back to town. We've also managed to collect some more gold too. We can now upgrade the town and build new structures. There's plenty of options, we just need to decide where to start. I think we'll start with the tavern, the beating heart of Kingsmarch. It can be upgraded instantly to improve the recruiter's prospects. And you can find various important NPCs relaxing here. Next, we'll upgrade our mining station. You can upgrade this to improve the efficiency of your miners and allocate our newly hired
Mine
workers
those
to
shit
mining.
coins.
You will eventually need a smelter, where you can send your ore to turn into more valuable bars.
Fenny Schmelter.
Then we have the Disenchanter, where you can bring your magic, rare, or unique items to be added to a queue to be disenchanted over time. The items will be broken down into thaumaturgic dust, a new resource used for crafting and shipping. We'll get more into that later. And of course, a town needs food. You could invest in farming, where you can select crops to grow and harvest. But don't worry, you won't be manually watering anything.
Farming
the
game.
wonders of delegation. With all these resources piling up, there will be excess that we can spend. Let's talk about rewards in Settlers of Kalguur. Eventually, you
Alright.
can build a harbour and establish shipping routes between a number of different Kalguuran and Karui ports for trade. You'll be able to pile your acquired resources onto these ships and send them to a port of your choosing, where your traders will haggle for the best deals. Each port
Okay.
will return specific rewards based on what you send them. They accept all types of resources, but will have a preferred type that they'll currently pay more for. And you'll want to get onto this, because eventually you could be bringing in shipments like this. This,
Ooh.
or even this.
Okay, so the shipments were also where the crazy items were.
Today, we're going to trade with Kalguur. You'll notice that as we send more resources, this risk meter creeps up. Much like the dangers on the shores of Rayclast, there are dangers out at sea. Monsters,
Headhunter and
pirates,
Mageblood deleted from the
environmental
game.
hazards. You'll want to try keep your shipments safe.
Legacy now.
You can do this by hiring workers that specialize in shipping. The more of them you add to the ship, the less risk there will be. Like this gentleman, who's famous for fending off even the most dangerous of pirates. Now let's get that shipment going, and we'll continue exploring Rayclast while we wait for its return.
Yeah, that's
This
huge
is the
for lore
first
reasons.
Path of Exile League that experiments with true, real-time mechanics. You can send out shipments, go and have lunch, and come back to your rewards. Many mechanics in the League work this way, so you'll always have some ongoing project or outcome to look forward to. When your
Backloaded
shipment
rewards.
has returned, or met its demise, you'll get notified, and at your leisure you can return to the town to collect your rewards.
That's crazy.
Our shipment returned safely, so let's go see what we got.
Because
Cool,
this
they've sent us
rewards
a unique
like
item alongside our
returning
rewards,
players,
perhaps
like-
hoping to secure us as a loyal customer for the future. Aside from shipping, the Kalguurans are big on their technology. They have hired Isla, a familiar face from the Heist League. She is an engineer who the Kalguurans have employed for a very exciting purpose. You're not the only one who understands how profitable running maps can be. Once at endgame, Isla can help you build a series of Kalguuran modified map devices.
and then they run the
You can then
maps
put a
for
queue
you.
of maps into them. If you've hired a few skilled Atlas runners, they will put themselves to work running those maps for you one after another. Look, more delegation. Once again, you'll be notified when the rewards are ready to be collected.
They don't get
You can
shit.
put
They have
lots
to
of
run the
in
maps
queue,
for you.
so don't feel obliged to go back there all the time. Be careful though. The difficulty of the map impacts the risk of your workers perishing.
95% chance for that
Try to pick
astronaut
your
to be
best workers.
permanently killed.
Or perhaps just
They're
ones
playing
you don't.
hardcore as well, dude.
Consider the difficulty too. Sometimes it's better to just run it yourself.
Ah.
You'll see there are many benefits
Those
to
poor
having
workers.
a whole ass town at your fingertips. Let's talk about crafting services. You should definitely consider building a runesmithing table. This is operated by Danik himself, using powerful Kalguur and blacksmithing arts.
Skull's core, I
He can
mean,
engrave
probably,
runic
yeah.
magic onto your weapons using runes. There are many rune types and combinations to choose from, and you can unlock new crafts that can be applied to your weapons as enchantments. Our design intention here is to take powerful effects you would usually only find on unique items, like this modifier, which you might recognize from Doomfletcher's Prism. Danik can apply it to your two-hand maces. There are
What?
over 100
30 to
different special
50
crafting
weapon
outcomes,
fists
ranging
extra
from ones
of
very easily
each
applied to very
element?
difficult. The rune types can be acquired through trade with Kalguur, or defeating powerful bosses.
That's OP.
The Kalguur and tech benefits don't end there. We're also bringing back a formerly overpowered crowd favorite, Recombination. Isla is trying to master this. She just needs you to help her with getting resources.
I called it!
The system isn't as strong as it used to be, but it still allows you to combine two items together, hoping to get the best modifiers of each onto a single item.
But it's just less likely to happen. But hey,
Between
fuck
running
it.
a
It's
town,
gonna happen.
shipping, and exploring, you'll be collecting a lot of extra gold. It is now the primary resource for two huge new quality of life features that we are putting to test.
Okay.
Firstly, you can use gold to respec passive points.
Okay,
This is a
that
feature
we already
from Path
knew.
of Exile 2 that we've decided just makes sense to port back. The higher level you are, the more expensive it gets. And the next one is absolutely massive. A currency trade market. The Kalguurans have recruited Faustus, another NPC from the Heist League. He allows you to asynchronously buy and sell currency and most other stackable items with other players without the nuisance of price fixes and
Oh,
people
it
who
is a
never
currency
respond.
auction house with other
All you need to
players.
do
I
is
thought it was
select
just
what
like a
currency you want,
NPC sort of
Say
thing.
what you have and your ideal ratio. It works kind of like a
In-game
real-life
currency
stock
trading.
market. Faustus will make the trade happen for you, so long as there is someone selling on the other end for the same rate or less. You'll be
Wow.
able to go back to blasting monsters while trusty Faustus does the dirty work, notifying you when your currency is ready for collection. All you need to do is pay him a small amount of gold for his time.
Wait, same rest rate or less?
Cards on
means
the table. This is an experiment.
their
to see if
price
this
or
type
they
of
get your
asynchronous
price?
Trading has a place in future Path of Exile releases. We're very excited to see how it goes. Now, given that Faustus is an expert in black market trade and shady deals, he also provides another service, offering
Gambling.
items for gold. The items will
Wait, what's
generate with
that?
random rarity, and on average, the modifiers on them are better than normal. This can be a
Gamble.
very nice way to get some targeted items during the campaign. For
Okay.
serious crafters, it can be a great starting point for making those elusive, specific in-game items, which perhaps you could take to the runesmith afterwards.
This
It's
is
worth noting
massive.
that you can invite Faustus to your hideout, where he will always be available for respecking, currency
Insanely
exchange,
massive,
and black market
crazy.
items. As your town grows, it will attract more attention, good and bad. Settlers of Kalguur features 3 endgame bosses that will close in on your operations, wanting a piece of the pie. They might capture and ransom your workers, even your entire ships. You'll have to make some tough decisions. Will you take them on or pay them off? One example of a boss is Sasan, the Bandit Lord. You won't
Okay.
stumble across this boss by accident. Instead, this unsavory character can come into your town at night and take your Atlas runners hostage, holding them for ransom. What happens next is up to you. Perhaps you'll refuse to negotiate with bandits, leading to a fight to defeat Sasan and rescue your workers. If you're not up for the heroics, you might simply pay the ransom in gold. Or perhaps these workers were especially disappointing, and you'll just leave them for dead in true Ray class fashion. they knew what they were signing up for, right? Of course, the heroics might be worth it for other reasons. These bosses can drop new unique items. In sum, Settlers of Kalguur is a very experimental league with new mechanics that will completely change how
Guess I
you
should
play
have
the core game.
screenshotted that one, but someone did,
We've been
right?
sitting on a lot of these ideas for a while and can't wait to share them with you. But there's a lot more to this expansion. Let's talk about balance. Well,
Wow.
we've
How long is
finally
this going to
rebalanced
be?
the Gladiator. It's
They're
been
gonna
a
make it
long
as
time
long?
coming. Like before, there are passive skills that allow you to invest in bleeding and block.
They did it!
We've designed new skills
Finally.
replacing some of the old ones.
It's like they
this,
decided...
War of Attrition, which is very handy for long, sustained boss fights.
to do
Further
all the shit they
alongside
need
the
to do.
Gladiator theme, this new passive allows you to combine different weapon types while dual wielding to get a variety of powerful bonuses. For example, holding a dagger will give you more critical strike chance, while holding a mace gives you more area of effect. Of course, you could just use Varanastra for all weapon type bonuses. And finally,
Ooh,
we
huge
have a new
Varanastra
notable
buff.
which allows you to invest in the newly added retaliation skills. These are active skills which require you to meet a certain condition in order to use them. Once you meet that condition, you can unleash devastation on your foes. Here we have Eviscerate, which requires you to have a shield. Or for those who like to dual wield, Sword Storm, which is great for obliterating bosses.
Ooh.
Here we have the Divine Retribution skill. This one has the condition requiring you to block. You can then unleash a devastating spell, causing lightning bolts to strike the ground in an X shape around your target location, doing huge amounts of damage. And of course, in true Path of Exile fashion, there are many avenues to invest in these mechanics further on the passive tree and a new support gem. You are able to increase the leeway duration after meeting the condition, reduce the cooldowns, or just increase their damage. The world's your oyster. The
Sounds
Gladiator
crazy.
wasn't the only ascendancy class we've changed. As we develop Path of Exile systems, we often find ourselves reusing mechanics, increasing their depth, and allowing more avenues to invest into them. As such, the Raider Ascendancy class found itself lacking, with many of its passives commonly available elsewhere. We want our Ascendancy classes to always feel like they're pushing the boundaries, allowing you to change your character in ways that are meaningful and ideally unique. As a result, we've straight up removed the Raider, rest in peace,
Wait, what?
and we've added a new class in its place, the Warden. This class is largely inspired by its predecessor from the Affliction
Rest
League,
in peace, Raider.
with a few changes. The Warden now focuses on elemental attacks, changing the behavior of shock,
Let me guess.
Enhancing
Warden
freeze.
gets the backpack.
and
Everyone
replacing
Warden.
Ignite with Scorch.
Ooh.
There's also a skill that allows you to go ballistic with your elemental damage, periodically. The class also grants Barkskin, which is a skill that can be used to mitigate physical damage from hits. After taking a number of hits,
Rip
it
Raider
increases your
memes,
evasion,
guys.
making it a great defensive choice. Finally, the last thing the Warden can specialize in is tinctures. These are an alternative to flasks from the Affliction League. We're bringing them back with adjusted mechanics.
Oh, they do get tinctures. Wow.
Tinctures can be placed in your belt, replacing flasks. You can inherently only have one tincture active at a time, and it requires a melee weapon to use. While activated, they grant a powerful buff.
Wait, it's melee
They
now.
can drop as magic items
only melee.
or be modified with currency to grant extra
Not
bonuses.
balls.
Here is a prismatic tincture. This one increases elemental damage by 100% while active. You'll notice it has two extra effects. One is that it applies mana burn every second. Mana burn is a debuff that builds up while tinctures are active that causes you to lose mana, losing more mana for each stack. Tinctures also have a cooldown, so once you have disabled one, no other tincture can be enabled for a time. These changes make tincture use a more active and interesting choice than it was in Affliction. Both mana burn and the cooldown can be modified through modifiers on the tinctures, or on the passive skill tree. Players will
I
want to
see.
maximize their tincture uptime for sure. Here we have a couple other tinctures. The Poisonberry tincture is excellent for poison builds. The Rosethorn tincture is the choice for those wanting to deal critical strikes. You might be wondering, with the removal of the Raider, where has the Frenzy Charge investment gone? We've added a Frenzy Charge passive skill to the Deadeye, replacing the Rupture passive skill.
No more Rupture.
On top of Ascendancy classes, we have revisited a number of core mechanics.
Deadeye
This
log
time
in,
taking
dude.
pains to ensure easy access through the
90%
passive tree,
leak starting
skill
Deadeye.
gems, and simple items. We don't want all the powerful mechanics to be hidden behind layers of complexity. Let's just rapid fire through the key points. If you want more detail later, you can read the patch notes, which will be dropped after the livestream. Be sure to let us know what you think. There's a lot of changes, so be prepared for a bit of a shock to the system. I expect it will take several days for the dust to settle on this one. Firstly, we've made some drastic alterations to melee skills. Let me just rip this band-aid off. Melee totem skill gems have been removed. We're trying to adopt a philosophy with melee going forward that, unlike other builds, it will be far less oriented around set and forget gameplay. You will deal the damage yourself, and you should be rewarded for doing so.
I'm so curious
To
about what they're
compensate,
doing
we
there.
have buffed the damage on almost every single melee skill. As the majority of this damage growth comes from gem levels, we have also made them cost more mana as they level, but it's nothing like the mana costs on spells. Here are some examples of the damage and costs before and after. Heavy Strike has gone from dealing 313% attack damage at gem level 20 to a massive 552% attack damage.
Wow.
It's also worth noting, it no longer knocks enemies back. And
That's
Sweep
also
has
a
gone
buff.
from dealing 281% attack damage to now
What?
dealing 664%
It's more than
attack
double.
damage
What?
at gem level 20. These
But
are
it-
just two
but it
examples.
still knocks people
but the
back.
majority of melee skills are now dealing approximately 75% more damage at level 20.
Wow,
Of course,
dude.
with melee comes close proximity combat, so you need some good defensive options. New base types
WASD
with higher
play
defensive values will now
implement.
drop throughout the endgame. As you reach yellow, red, and purple maps, you can expect to find higher tier base types in each.
Yeah, those have been teased in the
For
teasers,
example,
not explicitly,
Var
but
Regalia and
we've
Hubris
seen
Circlet
some.
are no longer the best in slot items for Energy Shield.
This is
There
a
are
good
new
way
base
to
types that
invalidate
surpass
past
them.
crafts, by the way, guys.
Combined
Like
with
all
some
the
quality
legacy
changes,
mod
which we'll
items
talk
in
about
standard.
soon, you can now get better items than ever before in these slots.
Better
To
items than ever
compensate, we
before.
have reduced the amount of flat evasion and armor from the Grace and Determination auras. But overall, you're getting more defenses than before.
I called it. That's what I said. They're nerfing the
On
auras,
top
but
of
they're
this,
giving
we
us
have buffed
back the
life
base
modifiers on magic and
armor
rare
from
equipment.
items.
You can now get as high as 189 additional maximum life from a single
I
modifier
came in
on
my
body
pants.
armors, and more on other slots too.
189 life on my chest.
Kalm's Heart has also finally been restored to its former glory, and
What?
once again grants plus 1000 to maximum life.
No way, dude.
I mentioned quality. Quality on weapons and armors is being changed to apply multiplicatively. In other words, weapons with full quality will give 20% more physical damage, and armor with full
this we
quality
knew
will
about.
have
That's
20%
crazy.
more local defenses. For melee, this will mean a damage increase for almost all builds using physical damage attacks.
It
And
also
will
used
mean
to be
more
so
evasion,
unintuitive
armor,
how it
energy
worked in the
shield,
past.
and ward for all builds.
That it like stacked additively
Endurance
with the
charges
increases
no
on
longer
the
grant
item.
elemental resistances, but instead grant additional elemental damage reduction,
I
making
calmed
it
in my
multiplicative
pants.
with resistances. You can now get 4% per charge, alongside the existing 4% physical damage reduction. To compensate, we have made some changes to the Juggernaut, and various unique items like
Mark
Eternal
Roberts is the
Damnation.
man.
You can get more maximum resistances from the tree, specifically around the Marauder class start. These of course can stack with the new elemental mitigation from endurance charges. On top of this, duels can now roll maximum elemental resistances as modifiers. Since we're making elemental mitigation more accessible, we've heavily reduced accessibility to physical damage taken as chaos or elemental damage. Those stats are still around, but you should not expect to be getting full conversion anymore. All block passives have been buffed, so you can now more easily achieve block cap from just the passive tree. The Keystone Versatile Combatant has been improved to have less of a penalty to maximum block. A number of Life Leech passives have been buffed to generally allow for more acquisition of maximum leech rate for life.
Yeah, needs to be because
Valve
more
Pact
damage,
has been
right?
reinstated to its former glory for instant life leech, but only for melee. We've reworked Flesh and Stone.
Yes.
Previously, this buff skill
Yes.
granted Maim and Blind, depending on the stance of our character. Now, while in Sand stance, the skill simply provides damage mitigation, becoming more effective the closer you are to enemies. While
Okay,
in
that
Blood
sounds
stance,
good.
enemies will take more physical damage the closer you are to them. This skill will now greatly favor melee or close-range gameplay.
That's good shit.
Given we're doing a Kalguuran League, Ward has also received a bit of attention. There are new uniques that grant Ward, and the base restoration of Ward is now faster. To compensate, Olroth's Resolve has been nerfed, but Ward loop builds will still be possible. Anyway, that was most of the purely defensive changes. Now let's look at some of the offensive and utility-based ones.
Okay. We
There
said
are more and
what's the-
better ways to deal with mana
offensive?
as an attacker on the southern hemisphere of the passive tree.
Good shit. Yeah, needed.
Wands, daggers, scepters, claws, and staves now have higher critical strike chance values than ever. Wands can go as high as 10% without modifiers. Sandstorm
Wow.
Visage has been made rarer to compensate, instead of reducing its power. For you wand attackers, wands now have higher attack speed than ever to compensate for their low damage. Wand exclusive skills such as Power Siphon, Kinetic Bolt, and Kinetic Blast now have faster attack times.
Nice.
Impale passives have been revised and in general buffed. The buffs granted by Warcries are now simpler but more significant, and more universal to builds. They also now apply to allies by default. Banners have been reworked. Instead of having a reservation cost, they are now free.
Wait,
However,
I can
they don't
enduring
grant a
cry
permanent
for my
buff.
allies?
Banners now need to be placed for the effect to be active. However, once placed, they are far more powerful than before. Additionally,
no
there
more
are new ways
reservation.
to prolong
Nice.
the effects and more ways to invest in them than ever before.
That's kind of
Rage
cool. I
has
like
been
that.
made more fundamental and discoverable. Rage is now multiplicative attack damage, but no longer inherently grants attack speed or movement speed. It has a
ouch.
new cap, and you
No
can
more
find
rage
many
casting,
new passive
guys.
clusters that allow you to invest into the mechanic. The goal
Only
is to
melee
make Rage
ragers.
more powerful as a baseline, and less gated behind the use of specific unique items and ascendancy classes.
I guess you could do a
Berserk has
ranged
been
rager.
nerfed, just so you're aware. We
Berserk's
have changed
nerfed?
how
I didn't
bleed
see
works
it.
too. You can now find aggravated bleed on the passive tree. When applied, all bleeds on the enemy will deal damage as if the enemy is moving.
Wait, can we
for the
do
remainder of their duration.
earthquake bleed builds again?
The skill Ensnaring Arrow no longer interacts with bleed, so no more will you have to apply bleeds and swap to a bow. You can now achieve the same result using aggravated bleed passives without the annoyance.
Nice.
Rupture from the Deadeye has been turned into a support gem. We've added the new Overexertion support gem, which highly favors slam builds. Now, it's time to look at a hot topic, Magic Find. In the Settlers of Kalguur expansion, we are going to be removing item quantity bonuses from all character items. This will not affect existing items in standard leagues. Magic Find is intended to be another axis on your gear you can scale once you have achieved the power you want.
No more quant
With
farming,
item quantity
boys.
being only available on unique items, this meant if you wanted to get the most out of it, you had to be playing a very specific build. We still want people to be able to invest into Magic Find, but now only through item rarity. This can be obtained on a number of rare item slots, and by a much larger number of builds.
Yep.
What about Ventor's Gamble, you might ask? Here it is now.
Ooh.
This
So
is one
mana
of the biggest
reservation,
balance patches we've ever done.
negative and positive,
I can't
probably.
promise that existing builds will all be safe.
Nope,
Even
you
we
can't.
aren't able to predict all the outcomes here, nor
Probably
have we
not.
even gone into every single change, just the major ones. I don't know, man.
Let me lean in.
Balance is hard. But the sheer number of new, viable options is exciting,
Balance is
especially for
hard.
Melee. And we're
The
determined
admission.
to drag the game in a better direction. Be sure to read the patch notes after this. It's going to be a ruckus.
I'm looking forward to it.
In
I can't wait.
324,
No,
we
I'm so
overhauled
sold
the in-game
already.
experience by introducing a new tier of maps and reworking scarabs.
Wait, what?
We want
Another
to
tier of
continue
maps?
to improve
Oh, wait,
these
last
systems
league. Right.
and introduce more exciting in-game content every league. 325 is no exception. Let's check
Dropping
out the myriad of
internship.
changes coming in Settlers
Dropping
of Kalguur.
apprenticeship. Nah, I
First
can't
up,
do that. I need to.
we are
I need that
changing many
money.
scarabs.
I'm indebted.
We won't go into too much detail here to avoid getting lost in the weeds, but here's a few new ones. Be sure to check out the patch notes after this for more detail. We've also added an additional map device slot, which will be unlocked upon completing your first 10-way Maven encounter. This simply allows for more combinations of scarabs and maps, resulting in more difficulty and more rewards. This is on top of the existing additional slot that can be unlocked by completing your first Tier 17 map. There are now 6 map device slots in total. You might have seen our teaser, where we revealed we'll be adding new special encounters to the endgame. One such encounter is the Nameless Seer, lurking in Tier 16 and 17 maps. This NPC will give you a selection of unique items, and you can pick one for free. In Tier 16 maps, he now has an additional feature, where you can scry a map.
What?
This allows you to swap the divination card drops of the current map with another map on your atlas. Just one caveat, you cannot have the same map
Scrya.
be in multiple swaps at the same time. If you want to undo your choice, you can use a scouring orb on either map on your atlas. We've also made some updates to a couple of leagues. Blight has been updated with some atlas passive skill changes,
Neat.
and double anointed amulets can now drop in Blight Ravaged maps.
Okay, double
We've
anointed
also introduced
amulets.
a new type of oil that can only drop from Blighted and Blight Ravaged maps.
Yeah, we heard about this.
Ritual has also been updated. You can now find one new and many reworked base types, new unique items,
Wait, ritual exclusive
corpses
uniques?
you can use to raise as specters,
Corpses.
and
Ooh,
occasionally
that's actually a
fragment,
good addition to
granting
ritual.
access to the King in the Mists boss fight from the Affliction League.
Ooh,
He will drop a
neato.
number of unique items that were familiar from the league,
But not the jewel.
but not that which was taken, as it is now that which was taken away.
Oh, they just changed the name.
However, he now drops a different modular jewel that you might recognize from the
Oh, right.
Necropolis League.
Nah, it was a joke. The Light of Meaning. 5% increased global critical
In
charge.
Tier 16
Oh, okay.
and Tier 17 maps, you can now encounter the Wildwood, also from the Affliction League. In case you missed it, the Wildwood is a mysterious forest fraught with danger. In the darkness, you will find magical wisps yearning for freedom. Upon releasing them, they will empower the monsters in your map, promising more danger but more rewards.
Classic.
You may also find random
No
sentinels
way.
on the ground near the start of your maps, from the Sentinel League. They work in a
Clap,
similar
boys,
way
clap.
to before. They aren't items, but you can click on them and then they can be activated in that area at any
Yeah,
time of your
and they do
choosing.
their thing, and we got our
Upon
recombinator
activation, They
access.
will buff monsters
That
around
is
you,
all we
increasing
wanted.
their difficulty and rewards. And here's one for those who like to live dangerously. You may occasionally find a reflective mist from the Kalandra League. It has 2 outcomes. It could drop a jewelry item with randomly enhanced or inverted modifier values, or it can give a reflecting mist item, which can be used on an existing piece of jewelry to perform the same action
All
at
the
a
good
time of your
chase
choosing.
shit's back,
Good
dude.
luck. There's many other small changes to League content. We're removing the first 15 most boring waves of the simulacrum and rebalancing its rewards to improve the chances of finding unique jewels. We're also adding some of the beasts from Einhar's Memory of Harvest Beasts to the core
Absolutely
book.
nuts, dude.
This includes the Black Morrigan. In other news, we've added a set of new chisel types, which can be applied to your maps to get different bonuses. While the cartographer's chisel still increases item quantity, there are new ones that now increase rarity, pack size, increased chance for currency items, divination cards, and scarabs. It's also worth mentioning that chisels now apply 20% quality per chisel to white maps, 10% to yellow maps, and 5% to red maps and higher.
Yep,
Unique
I
maps
remember
still require
that.
the full
That's pretty
20
good.
Chisels. Also, only one type of chisel can be applied to a map at a time.
Yeah,
During
that was to be
324,
expected.
we made a change to Tier 17 maps that allowed them to be rerolled with Chaos Orbs. We are now expanding the currency types that can be used on them to also include currencies like chisels and Val Orbs.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Ultimately, the only restriction Tier 17 maps now have is that explicit modifiers cannot be removed from them.
Yeah.
We have also revised the difficulty of these maps, as they didn't quite hit the mark. The monsters in them now have substantially less life, and deal less damage, meaning
Less
Tier
life,
17
less
maps
damage?
now better fit into the progression between Pinnacle and Uber Pinnacle content.
Okay.
Lastly, we've adjusted the drop rate of Valdo's puzzle boxes. Previously, we were adapting its drop rate based on the possible outcomes selected by supporters. So many supporters really wanted Mage Bloods, so the box was hardly dropping.
It starts at
Thus,
1
we
and
have
goes to
drastically
15, but
increased the drop
15
rate
is
of the box,
the new, like,
but reduce
the
the
old 30.
probability of getting chase unique items from it, like Mage Blood. Overall, we have taken care not to reduce the number of Mage Bloods total in the economy. We figured it was better to have more tickets for fun rather than barely seeing any boxes in a league. We've been hard
Nice.
at work improving the Path of Exile experience on consoles. With native ports for the Xbox Series consoles already being released, and PS5 on the near horizon, the game now takes full advantage of the console hardware. Loading times have been reduced even further, pop-in has been reduced, and textures won't start unloading in heavy scenes.
Nice.
Furthermore, overall visual fidelity has been improved for all new generation consoles. Path of Exile now uses the highest available resolution textures and water effects. We've
Okay.
installed a new upscaling algorithm that improves the crispness of dynamic resolution, with an additional anti-aliasing pass on top of that.
Okay. Gotta tell my console
With these
friends to
upgrades,
play
we
PoE
also
again.
support variable refresh rate TVs and monitors on PlayStation
60
5
hertz is
and on
huge.
all Xbox consoles.
That's
In
huge.
the options, players can now choose which aspect of visual fidelity they want to focus on: resolution, image quality, or target frame rate.
120 hertz, dude.
In 324, we added some new encounters and secrets to the campaign. In Settlers of Kalguur, we're adding even more.
Did they say
We're not
upscaling?
going
I
to
thought they
spoil
said
them all here,
downscaling.
but keep an eye out for anything unfamiliar on your adventures. Who knows what you'll find? I mean, I know, but still. There's an underground bunker underneath the refinery, guarded by powerful robots. I wonder what's been hidden away here. How do I unlock this mysterious door? What riches must lay inside? Blighted growths have appeared in the gardens and sewers of Sarn. A vault containing riches can be found in the reliquary. As you might have seen in our teasers, there's a slew of quality of life features we've been working on. Here's a quick summary. You'll no longer need to interact with waypoints to unlock them. You can just walk by and they'll activate automatically. When using keyboard and mouse, you'll be able to pick up items from further away.
That's so huge, dude.
We're adding static life bars to some bosses. Not all bosses will have them just yet, but we'll be adding more over time. You can now see which divination cards drop in each map by hovering over them on your atlas. When you die, you can now resurrect without having to reactivate all your reservation effects, like auras and heralds. You can start harvest encounters with just a single action. The amount of quality provided by currency items like whetstones is now based on the item level, rather than item
Wait, these are
rarity.
just the teasers
Those
again.
currencies
He
now
mentioned
apply a
that earlier
20%
in the
quality
video.
to very low-level items, with that amount reducing as the item level increases.
Just repeat it. It's filler content.
Next up, we're going to be talking about our new League supporter packs. Today,
Right,
we're launching
let's see.
2 new series of supporter packs, the Paladin and Penance packs. Each tier contains the pack's full face value in points, alongside several exclusive microtransactions. These packs are only available for the duration of the Settlers of Kalguur League and will leave the store forever when it ends. As always, the microtransactions in these packs are purely cosmetic and do not affect your character's power or progression in any way. The Paladin series of supporter packs contains 6 exclusive microtransactions. Adorn your weapon or shield with the Paladin weapon effect.
That looks crazy
Make
good.
a show of leveling up with the Harpy Flyover level up effect. Equipping
Nice
the
level up
Divine
effect.
Paladin armor set will periodically cause slain enemies to be consecrated and laid to rest.
I like that they
This
use
set
the
also
Legion
comes with a
soundtrack for
matching
this.
back attachment.
Da, da,
Both the
da,
helmet
da,
and back
da.
attachment have options to display the radiant glow, or not. You pick. The Divine Judgment finisher effect locks onto unique enemies before obliterating them with a laser from the heavens.
Iron
May your
Cannon
critical hits
activated.
resonate across Rayclast with the Cleric's Bell back attachment. Invite your friends to spend a day at the races in the Vasteri Racecourse hideout. Add rowers to the track to race them against each other.
I want to bet
Or
gold on
you
the
can
Roars.
just spectate from the sidelines.
No, dude. You can't. What? You need to
The
add.
Penance Pack series also has
People
6
need to be able to
exclusive
bet gold against
microtransactions.
each other. Nah, you
Penance
can't
back
do that.
attachment equipped, a repentant soul is chained to your back and lashed with lightning. Ouch. Place none other than the Trial Master in your hideout and have him comment on your chaos
A classic, but far fairer now than in ancient times.
and Val crafting attempts.
Your luck is over, fool.
Imagine he
even
says
keeps
that
a
and it's
record
like
of how
actually a
many
really
chaos
good
and
brick.
Val orbs you've used in your hideout during the league or across all leagues. Blood stains your armor the more life you lose when wearing the Acolyte's Penance armor set. The Zealot's Madness portal effect fragments as you near it. The Cauldron map device boils maps, fragments, and scarabs placed into it, keeping a tally of how many have been thrown into the pot in the current league or across all leagues. The Exiled Squire pets follow in your footsteps, hyping you up for battles,
No sweat for you, boss.
What?
providing pessimistic commentary,
It's like a heist companion in regular game.
voicing their disdain for you to bring you down a peg.
About time you kicked the bucket.
These packs are now available for purchase on both PC and console, and will remain so during Path of Exile, Settlers of Kalguur. Meanwhile, the Solar and Eldritch packs leave the store forever at the launch of Settlers of Kalguur League.
Man, these
so now's your
tentacles.
last chance to purchase them. Thank you
Tentacle
so
map
much for your
device,
ongoing
boys.
support. Now, we have one more thing to announce before getting into the Q&A. We are soon
All right,
going
we
to
got
be
the
running
Q&A.
a small closed beta test for Path of Exile 2. We have been taking sign-ups for the Path of Exile 2 beta tests over at pathofexile2.com.
I'm gonna be
We
playing
will
that
only
shit.
be selecting a very limited number of people for this first test, but if you
Dude,
want to
I'm a
make sure
content
that you're
creator.
considered, then head over to the website and register your email address now. We're just about to start the Q&A with
What was
Ziggy
it?
D. Afterwards,
Registration?
we'll post Path of Exile Settlers of Kalguur's full patch notes. With release at
forgot
the end
about
of
it.
next week, our community team will
No.
be posting crucial information you'll need for Settlers of Kalguur's release.
It's probably overloaded.
Keep an
Everyone
eye on
going
the
there
news.
now.
On release weekend, we
Page
expect
10.
to launch the new mystery box and this season's Kirax Vault Pass. Thanks for joining us today and checking out our latest developments.
Let's
We're looking
register.
forward to building our towns alongside you, trying new builds, slaying monsters, and exploring
bro.
new in-game strategies next week. We'll begin the Q&A shortly, so please get your
Getting
questions
DDoSed
ready.
by good marketing. Alright guys, this time Ziggy D is actually, I don't know whether you know, but Ziggy D is actually in New Zealand and he's doing the Q&A live. It's not like the usual podcast setup or anything, like he will be in hopefully in the same room as the person he's interviewing, which is, there's a question, is it going to be Chris? No, probably going to be Mark, right? Like, because Mark's the PoE 1 game director, and this is all the PoE 1 announcement, and why would Chris be there? Like, just to show off his beautiful bald head and do some dev checks? Probably not.
Morning,
Oh, it's
Exiles.
with Jonathan
We are
Rogers?
from the studios here in New Zealand. All three of us in person today for the first time ever. For a very exciting and
Almost good
massive
quality.
Q&A after some real whiplash from some huge announcements there. It just kept going. Like, you guys just kind of got in a room together and set up the whiteboard and put everything on there, huh?
I'm going to try and make this louder.
End of the day, really, we have this much time.
Oh, it's just
we
Ziggy,
have this
right?
many people who can do what we do, and we just keep going till the end. Like, it doesn't stop here. Like, we've still got one more week, right? Like, there are still changes that can be made, so we're going to keep making them. So,
No way.
but yeah, it's huge. It is absolutely massive.
Mark the
Jonathan was
can-do
saying to me
man.
the other day, I don't think it's that big. And I was like, mate, that was crazy. It just kept going.
Yeah, I mean, I guess from my perspective, I kind of look at this and I'm like, okay, when I compare it to the amount of stuff that's being created for PoE 2, it seems small, but yeah, when you actually think about it, it's like, yeah, it's pretty nuts.
Sound man
making
turned
a
off
homie game
Mark's
there, but
microphone when he's
we're
rubbing
only
his
talking about
pants
Path
with
of
the
Exile
mic.
1
For sure, for
today,
sure.
and you gave it plenty of space to shine. And we've got returning leagues, we've got a whole new league with a lot going on, and some very experimental content as well. And with all of that, you did tease us once again with the concept and potential of a boat league, and yet you sailed away and left us stranded on the dock once more. What gives?
It's very much not intentional. I suspect, and honestly, I honestly reckon if someone actually got a boat league, they wouldn't end up actually liking it. But we can only really prove that by
PoE 2 is
testing it,
boat
and
league.
so maybe one day we'll get there. But until then, you're just going to have, there'll be boats, but you won't be on the boats.
Well, you won't
Maybe
be on
one
the
day.
boats in PoE 2.
All right. We'll have to keep dangling that. Just
Jonathan
reach for
just
us.
says nothing because he knows. Jonathan knows there's boats in PoE 2.
Does this feel like to you guys? And I've seen this theory floated around a lot of a bit of a send-off league for Path of Exile 1, in a sense that we've got the Path of Exile 2 beta kind of just around the corner now.
I guess I don't really see it that way because, we intend to keep on making PoE 1 leagues. We're going to, it really is just, the standard lead cycle, it is hard as a studio making two things at the same time, for sure. But, that's something we just have to sort of get used to. And yeah, we certainly wouldn't want people to think, oh yeah, this is like the last PoE 1 league or something like that, right? It's definitely not the case. We're going to be continuing to make PoE 1 leagues, and, that like you should expect to see things of this size in the future as well.
This size.
Settlers of Kalguur, it adds gold, and I think we should touch on that and the whole currency exchange thing first. So it's obviously using gold for its features, its progression with the workers and upgrading buildings and things like that. But you're also experimenting with some core game features like respecs.
Small
and
indie
a trading
company can
fee
only
for
afford one
the
good
new
camera, by the
currency
way.
Exchange, huge announcement there. So those that have been following Path of Exile 2 will be familiar with the concept of gold and why that's a thing that you might add to the game now after it's not had gold for so long. But could you explain what is the idea behind gold?
So really, I mean, gold is something that PoE 1 obviously never had. I think it's something that, in retrospect, I think that didn't help the game. The important thing with gold is that it's not used as a trading currency. Like, gold needs to be something that is only, it's bound to the individual character, and that means what it effectively is a measure of how much actual play that you've done, right, since you can't trade it between players. And that means that it's actually ends up being a perfect currency to be able to do something like gate the player-to-player trade with an automated system like that, because in order to be able to you can't just sit there flipping all day. You actually have to be able to go and play the game as well, and that sort of prevents the kind of crazy inflation that you can get with other automated, auction house type systems that you see in other action RPGs, or at least that's the theory. But the thing is that we have to test this stuff, and this is the reason why we're really keen to do it as a league mechanic to start with, to sort of see, is it going to work? Is the economy going to go weird? What's going to happen? That way we can kind of dip our toe in, see what happens. Test this, because the thing with this trade stuff is you you really cannot test it, like in the office, right? Like it is simply we don't have thousands and thousands of people that you would need to be
currency
able to actually
trading
see how it goes.
auction
So
house is
on some
huge.
level, we kind of need our community to see what happens with the economy to be able to test something like that, and that's just one of the few areas where that's like that. What we're hoping is that everything just goes fine. It's just way better. We can then immediately put it in the core game as soon as we've done with that, ideally without too many tweaks, and then that'll be good. But we really have to see by putting it in a league first.
The thing I really like about this gold idea is that it allows you to effectively be converting
it probably doesn't work in
this
SF,
idea
no.
of friction in the user experience of like physically trading into actual gameplay.
Page
Right,
loaded
stuff
for
you
you,
like
nice.
doing.
For sure. That really helps. And as I said, like this system, it'll be also really nice to be able to see how it works before we ship PoE 2 as well. It's really nice to to be able to do that. And we may be able to go further than this. The intention is to go further, and so this is effectively our first the first part. We'll see how it goes. I don't know if you know.
There is also one thing about this, and just because it maybe wasn't clear, is that despite being in the league, gold is just dropping as items from killing everything in the game. You kill monsters, you play the game, you're getting gold. You don't actually need to engage with the league to use the gambling, use the respecking, or use the currency exchange. So despite being in the league, and the gold is only dropping in the league due to us being more experimental with it and seeing how it goes, like if you don't like the league's mechanics, it's not like those are gated behind that as well. I just wanted to clarify that just in case anyone was thinking, I don't want to.
You can just invite Faustus into your hideout and then just use them for that, and and that can be the only thing you do if you want.
So all that currency exchange, the item gambling and stuff is all like fully accessible, even if you basically don't do any of the other stuff.
For sure.
Yeah,
for sure.
which means, of course, if it is successful, it can port into the core game very, very
Yeah.
easily. You just turn gold drops on, put Faustus in, done. I mean, there's a little bit more than that, but that's generally the summary of it. And it doesn't have to come with the whole kind of city building element and all of that comes alongside it. Yeah.
Yeah, so do you see it being something that's likely to stick around then? And that's kind of the intention.
That is certainly our intention. It's just that we want to be able to still have an out if things go horribly wrong, or if we feel like we need to change some stuff. So it is certainly our intention to keep it in if we can.
It's a nice little safety net at being part of the league for you then. Safety report, just in case.
Probabilities are high, and I suspect also no one's going to let us remove it, right? So let's be realistic here.
It would have to go horrifically wrong for everyone to be like, okay, you were right, don't do this.
Yeah.
I can't
It
imagine.
looks so good though, the interface.
So there's also this gambling thing with Faustus where you can buy these un-ID'd items, and actually look pretty powerful from what I saw. Like the items it was producing were like those really well rolled rares. What's the idea behind the gold-based gambles? Why is that a part of it?
Ultimately, it's a sink. You don't want gold to just be accumulated forever. But the awesome thing is that it's a way to target specific base types. And that's ultimately the luxury. So obviously when you're going through the campaign and you're looking for specific targeted gear upgrades, very, very useful for that. And it, as you get higher and higher level, I guess as you upgrade your tavern, I guess technically sort of, but also as you just get higher level, it upgrades
they clearly do
the
give a
modifier
shit.
tier rating, which was a term some people might not know, but it was used in Necropolis League, which effectively cuts off the bottom X tiers that can generate. So the items by endgame will be generating with a minimum tier higher than something, and thus they are pretty powerful items.
It's worth mentioning that there's quite a lot of changes in this league around the idea of how can we make rares more viable than uniques. Like quite a lot of the balance things are actually around this idea, and that extends to things like adding more base types higher up and so on to make it so that there's that they can compete with uniques more. The higher tier life mods, all of this sort of stuff, and the gambling and the ability to get rares this way as well is once again another part of this. So we really want to try and make it so that and the reason why that's important is because if like Mark said in the video with the item quants problem as well, that was one of the other things that sort of meant that you had to be tied to specific uniques, like for sure. And so we just wanted to remove more of the barriers that allow people to just be able to use rares, and then that opens up for more different build types. Like if less uniques become mandatory. That's as I said, it's just another one of those things that kind of affects that.
So with that being an attractive expenditure of gold, how much do you want players to be able to trade currency freely between each other with this very fast and
Honestly, I think like just wait.
Like, obviously,
Honestly, I think like just the melee changes and like all the quality of life, like you don't need the league. And I don't know whether the league is good, but like I'm hyped for the expansion.
We're fine with like a very high amount
the
of
release.
liquidity. Later on,
all melee
we've talked
skills
about how in
rebalanced.
PoE2 we're going to be doing asynchronous trade for items as well. For that, we need to have a bit less liquidity, and the reason why is because currency can sync itself. Like there is its own currency sync, so effectively that means that we don't have to like worry too much about fast trade there. Like the relative value should establish, and everything should be okay, and it shouldn't matter too much about that being highly liquid. That said, there is still a gold price to do it because we don't want people literally just sitting there just doing only that forever. But that this is something that we don't want to. It certainly should feel like if you're just playing regularly, that you can get all the currency you want from the trade market and you don't feel restricted by the gold price. Like it's not intended to be something that a normal player would run into, assuming that they're just doing normal things with currency.
Is Mark
course,
wearing the
it
PoE
is
2
still
sweater
meant to have
and
high
Jonathan
friction
the
early
PoE
game?
1 sweater?
Yeah, because you don't want.
You don't want to demean the leveling experience and the new
Yeah,
player
yeah,
experience
yeah,
where
yeah.
they think the right answer is to go and just trade all of the stuff
Right.
away. You want it to be that you're more finding items there
Right,
and getting
right.
things organically, and only later in the game does it become.
So the gold prices late in the game are like not a roadblock at all. The gold prices early in the game are a roadblock. So that's kind of preventing that early game kind of issue. that you
yeah,
have.
because you want an ALC when you're leveling your first character
you do
to feel like an ALC.
Yeah, exactly.
Not to be like,
yeah,
oh,
you don't
this
want
should
them
be
to
chaos.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, okay. But that honestly sounds like a relief that you're not worried about that sort of thing too much, because
Right.
that that kind of incentive to hoard currency and not spend it all while
Right.
leveling is always a bit of a bummer.
Right.
This feels like a bit of a momentous occasion, the the currency exchange. This because you've had this whole system of like the currency that syncs itself and stuff for so long, and now finally blending that with gold and this system, huge.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's also just a mental block as well, right? Because it's like, how
Yeah.
can you add gold to PoE? It's like, it's just one of those. It's one of those things. So
This was one of the key components that was part of like designing the league. It was largely like how we started from that point. Because again, when you ask most people in the office, most players in the office and outside the office, what is the like number one problem with Path of Exile? And then what experience gives them the most negative reaction?
For sure.
It's often trade.
Yep.
And especially, and I
The absence of gold.
I can't remember if it was last league or the league before. And I was trying to buy. What was I trying to buy on the currency? It was like one of the catalysts. I was like, okay, I just need a catalyst up my rings.
I have to
and
pee. I'll be right back.
And you get 100 people on the trade website. I just went spam. I got 100 people. And guess how many replied? Zero. Zero people replied to me. Now,
It's real.
I know you're meant to scroll down because all the top people are just bad actors. And then it's like, okay, I actually got to a point where I was like, okay, genuinely no one replied. And then like so I was just like on Discord, I was like, yo, I need some help buying these things. Can everyone just start messaging everyone trying to get these catalysts for me, please? And so, yes, it is actually was hopefully to be no longer soon, the most frustrating experience you can have as a player at
It
endgame.
was something else.
And yes, so when we're designing the league, we're like, okay, if this is the number one problem, how are we not taking some sort of stride to solve it? And so that's kind of where, it almost acted as the basis of how can we build something around that, because then it's gold, and then it's like, what can you do with gold? And then we just extrapolated from there into all kinds of things. So yeah, I like that a lot of what we're developing now is coming from a how can we solve actual problems first, as opposed to just, as opposed to entirely like how can we add cool content. It's like how can we do both of these things at the same time? And I feel like a lot of what's going on in this patch is with that philosophy, as opposed to just here's cool stuff. It's solving problems and adding cool stuff at the same time.
I love this trend of you just doing the thing we do and being like, this is awful, just like you said.
Actually awful. Like I tried to in that live stream, I tried to voice my disgust at when I talked about price fixes and people who don't reply. But like, if you had got my actual emotional reaction, I would have probably been screaming a little bit and raging like a little bit more.
Yeah, most infuriating thing, and it was one of the things that ground me down last league that stopped me from enjoying as much as I could. So it's huge, and it really pairs in with like the Scarab changes and stuff recently as well. So We'll talk more about that later. But the currency exchange includes fragments, scarabs, anything that's homogenized.
Exactly, that's the word. So yeah, so obviously it can't work with things like maps and so on because they don't, they're not all identical. It's just anything that where they're exactly the same. No one item can be distinguished from another.
It has to be able to stack, is ultimately the goal, So yes, use the existing trade system for the things that can't. So that's like beasts can't be, maps can't be, incubators can't be because they have a level, things like that. They can't because they cannot guaranteed stack on a single thing. And it's not like you don't want to have a tab of incubators where it's got every incubator level 1, every incubator level 2, every incubator level 3, in this giant mega eternal list. So things like that you'll be
Finally
trading
get
using the
someone who
existing
actually
way,
plays the
and
game so
all
we get the
stackables
actual
you'll
good
trade.
changes. Yeah,
Hopefully
100%
using the
agree.
new way.
Like Mark Roberts is our hero.
Yes, div cards are in there.
Okay,
Yep.
wow, look
Yep.
wow.
Anything that is stackable, that
There's just so many of them, that's all.
anything that's stackable and has no other variable. Yep.
Wow. And you were telling me that
Have a
it
good
will
night,
list
son. Talk to you soon.
the 13 most common trade pairs for each item. And
So this is the thing because with this trade system, you can technically trade any item for any other item, because that's how PoE works. So we have to have some kind of way to basically tell players, okay, so here's the actual thing that people are trading this with. So effectively, unless you're the first person ever to trade something, then it's going to say here's the most popular several things that people trade for the saw, trade for the sin. It also shows you the market price, obviously, for what's been going on, as well as okay, so we're getting into stock market terms here. But the first five price levels in the order book. So that's to say you can see what the how many things are available at a few different price levels, and that will allow you to to do your trade. So I suppose some people will be learning more about the stock market pretty soon. I guess we'll have
some
nice.
people are going to love that.
Yeah, for sure. But one thing just to make sure people understand is this is still player to player trade. You don't know who you're trading with, and
you can't play an
instant
SSF.
if there's liquidity
trade in
in
SSF.
the market. But it is coming from someone else's actual stash.
Yeah, it's a physical trade still.
Yeah. So
League has new boss fights and
some people
stuff.
when they
I
see
kind of like it.
the video, they're okay, it's
powerful
just they're trading
rewards.
with the system somehow. There's some kind of market thing where the system determines a price. Something. No, it's not that. You're actually buying off someone else. So any trade you do where you've got I'm buying this, I'm selling this. Someone else has entered a trade on the other end of I'm selling this, I'm buying that.
And the prices are all set by players. That's what you guys
exactly.
setting that stuff.
Exactly.
There's a few other things I'll just mention as well that are adjacent or that got implemented as a result. So when you're adding them, it will pull from your stashes. It won't. You don't have to move everything to your inventory first and then do it. So you can, because if people might be wondering, okay, if I want to sell,
I don't see it as a micromanagement league. I see it as a in-league progression system like Sentinel or something where you progressively get more powerful.
of a given currency in a single exchange. If you have that much. What else? There are shortcut binds for moving all of them to your inventory, so you don't have to control click spam 1,000 times. It is, I believe, control right click will move all of them to your inventory. And also as a bonus, we have implemented that to and from the stash with all stackables as well. So you can control right click on a thing in your inventory to move all of that type into your stash. And
Finally.
vice versa.
Finally, they did it, dude. That's
falling
huge.
apart. Thank you.
Yeah, same. Yeah.
Best change.
See, for that change, you can do a little bit more micromanagement for the league, Mercury. That's optional instead of doing all that micromanagement that was mandatory.
Maps and gear and things like that.
Well, that's certainly the plan for PoE 2, and it would be nice to be able to do that in PoE 1 as well. We just have to work out how it can work exactly. So, I believe that we will get there, and that's certainly our intention. We'll see how it goes. But yeah, that's the intention. This part, I think though is solving quite a large amount of the problem, because I think this is the currency is what you're doing all the time. You need that to be easy. So we figured that we needed to get this part out there first.
Yeah, historic for the first time ever. That's been we want to do this unless something goes wrong.
Yeah.
Amazing. Perfect. All right, well, we'll leave the currency exchange there. Thanks for the extra insight on that. Did you have to resist the temptation to go like full candle graphs and all that stuff?
I'm sure at some point.
To.
I'm sure at some point this will start to happen. We'll have community like websites of like all the technical indicators and like all that sort of stuff.
Mad Money YouTube channel. Yeah.
It is worth noting also on the currency exchange, I will be posting a video on Monday just for anyone who's unclear, or Monday or Tuesday, New Zealand, for anyone who's unclear on how it works. It's a little bit of a like currency market for dummies kind of thing. It's just goes over the basics and hopefully, it's room for either feedback on UX if they see anything that wants to change, or of course just better understanding of how to use it. It is very easy for someone to get very scared looking at it and go, I don't quite know what to do. But it is pretty straightforward. You just, it can be easy to fare yourself out of buying or selling stuff because you may be like, I don't know what the best ratio is, and it provides all that stuff for you. It's pretty straightforward, but still. So hence putting out a video to try and help people out, in terms of understanding when they're going into it, and we'll see how it goes.
Mate, I'm definitely signing up for your trading tips newsletter. Can't wait.
My trading tips currently is like spam everyone and get really angry. So hopefully it's no longer that afterwards.
That's all
Mark Roberts, currency expert.
Excellent. So returning
professor
to Kalguur,
at Scissor and Stream
how did
Academy.
This very cozy concept for the settlers come about of this town building thing?
Well, I know what you pitched me on first was Pal World League. That was the first pitch I got.
I remember your initial response. I think was, hold on, that
but
could mean
that's gonna
many
be so
things.
cool in like a group found like little league to do that currency trading if that is enabled there.
Moved around a little bit from the initial pitch. I know,
and I don't know why it wouldn't.
The first pitch was definitely too complicated with all sorts of it had like way more stages of different products and all sorts of stuff going on. Like it was pretty crazy, and so it kind of got put into a more sort of like PoE applicable like way.
No, it's actually player to player trading more. It can't. So no in SSF, but in group found leagues, I think I would assume. If there's at least like one other person, then it should work.
For each, and then you want to make some game mechanic out of it, so you have some level of automation and stuff like that. And yes, there was a very, very, very long list at the start, and we ended up just refining it down to like, here are the actual important things that we can do and want to do. But yeah, and then obviously how the rest of it came about, the coziness and using Kalguur and all of that stuff, ultimately just comes from the fact that it's like, well, one thing that takes a long time in development, like a very, very long time, is art, right?
Yeah.
It takes a long time. You got your concept, you got research, you got, all the way through to the actual modeling and everything. It is a long process. So all of a sudden when you can be like, well, we've got all this art from this other game here.
Andy?
Yeah. So we actually thought it would be pretty cool, basically, because in Act 4 and PoE 2, we've got this whole thing of like the Kalguur and making a settlement on Rayclast. We thought it would be just cool to sort of tell that story of how that happened here, and we've got some of the stuff where we're like, it would be quite nice to do that. That's kind of ended up how that being. But
I'm
the
curious
thing that we got
how the
after the
Kalguur,
initial concept of we want to make some kind of settlement town thing, and we're like,
how the
what can we do with
Kalguur
that?
are going
and we realized,
to bind the two games together.
Storyline we've got going on here in PoE 2, might as well connect it up and kind of have like an interesting thing there.
It definitely feels like increasing the scope of the world a little bit, because this is a distant civilization 1,500 kilometers away. I saw on the map, and those are people who have not been involved in the storyline of PoE 1. So this is a new expansion there.
Sure. I mean, they always sort of technically existed. Like there was lore written for that when we did the previous expansion with them, Expedition. But like in PoE 2 we kind of expanded on that because we had that location and everything, and so that just meant that we've got the stuff, and I think it adds a little bit.
I like how Mark interjected it.
It is very, very rare for us to talk about or go outside of Rayclast ever.
Yeah, there's presumably a whole world out there, but we've not really heard too much about it, right?
Well, it's not just like, here's a planet of water with this like tiny little island, right? Like
the Star Wars planets.
So what we're saying is Boat League is possible. It's not like it's just land everywhere.
Confirmed,
damn, that was a good. I could have used that as an excuse for no Boat League, was to have it. Aside from this little bit of water, there's just land. The rest of it,
Yeah, you've already dropped the ball on that one. There's a few boats already.
Damn it, there's lots of water.
All right.
We're gonna get board league.
So this
Board
idea
league's gonna
of
come.
this is very much like a meta progression league, right? Like, and that's not a new concept. The idea of like a league having its own sort of progression outside of your personal character progression. But this is definitely the main flavor here. It feels. Is this something you specifically wanted to give players, like a greater context for their things that they're doing? So they're doing their Atlas, but they're getting golden resources and progressing this whole other thing.
I mean, for sure, but I will mention that, like, I guess it wasn't dwelled on a lot in the video, but like the resource gathering thing, like those encounters are encounters that you're going to be encountering through the world, and they have their own mechanics and stuff, which obviously Mark can talk more about. So like that is definitely like content there as well. It's just that like it's kind of not as easy to show. Like we kind of needed to show about all this sort of town stuff, but yeah, those encounters will hopefully be very enjoyable as well, and that's kind of like. I suppose you could call that the meat and potatoes in some sense of the league, because that's what you'll be doing. Every area you're going to find these things.
You're not going to be doing
so what's
the
that
fluff
content
building shit.
Yeah, so you got one in every area. Well, aside from something like Tidal Island and some of that stuff, you got one in every area minimum. So it's 1 to 2. And there are 5 different outcomes.
One guaranteed, one random.
6, but we'll go over the 5. So you can find different minerals. So the first is Crimson Iron. Crimson Iron is like iron that's overrun with like corruption. So you have these 3, 2 to 5, as it goes up as you go through the game, of these kind of growth spawners, and they're spawning demons or monsters. And then as you kill each growth, the other growths heal, like surge, spawn more monsters, and they accelerate. So they get slightly harder over time. So it's just a full monster encounter. Upon completing it, you get the ore. You've got Orichalcum, which is like guarded by these also demons, or demons were worshipping it. And you notice it had like a shrine icon. So after you kill all the demons, you get the shrine buff, which is, without immediately it sounding underwhelming, the old you had the old like shock, well, you got the Shock Nova and Firestorm shrines, except like done actual damage. So like all of a sudden you've got meteors and lightning storms raining down around you, and they are actually designed to kind of destroy monsters. So you get just this spike of power where you can kind of just run through and let them just obliterate everything. The third is Petrified Amber, which is looks like a little kind of like a tree thing. And
I missed that earlier.
And all of a sudden heaps of blight-esque monsters kind of come out of the ground and try and attack it. And it's almost like the old Aurion missions from way back, where you just have to protect this tree from the blighted monsters. It's not very difficult. Like, none of these are pitched to be very, very difficult, but they are going up in difficulty in the order that I am explaining them. The fourth is Bismuth, which I suspect will be people's favorite. The way this works is it's guarded by magic and rare monsters. I think 3 packs. I think 1 is rare. Well, maybe early game not rare, but late game it's like 1 is rare, 2 are magic. And they have an extra elemental modifier on them. Like the rare and magic mods, they just got an extra one that's elemental aligned.
That sounds really good, dude.
And when you obviously kill them, there's some free 3 packs of monsters. No one's going to complain about that. You click the Bismuth, it releases the elements into the rest of the area, which will apply elemental modifiers to all magic and rare packs in the area. League monsters have a lower chance of getting them, so it's not too out of control. And that does come with the difficulty, but it also comes with the increased item quantity and rarity that
a bit Wildwood
the mods come with.
It?
Yeah, a little bit, yeah. Obviously, it doesn't spawn frequently enough, so I don't expect people to do the whole, run around the whole area killing nothing before clicking it.
Yeah, nice.
You'd be wasting all of your time. However, of course, I can imagine it is the Magic Finder's dream, even though magic finding is nerfed, but whatever, that's a different thing. It is the current, whatever it is to be Magic Finder's dream.
Magic Find's buff because it's better now because you don't have to wear crappy gear.
Well, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Whatever state it's in, or however you feel about it, it is the dream for that person, because obviously you can find even... I believe you can find 2 of them in an area, and all of a sudden you're doubling up on that. I will obviously double check that, but that was definitely the intention. And then, you're getting like these kind of elemental tornadoes.
Rarity farming is where it's at now.
Obviously, they don't spawn when all the monsters are dead, so you're not just like losing and getting killed by a random tornado. And then the 5th encounter is Verisium, which is the thing that the Kalguurans love so much. And that very much is...
what did
it's
they
like
announce
the encounter
up to
from
now?
Crucible, where it's just like...
Not much, but potentially the best update ever.
And like spawns all the monsters around it, and then you fight them and kill them. And
TLDR, they buffed all the underused melee skills by as much as more than 200%, and or like more than 100%. They more than doubled, for example, sweeps damage, I think. And
of course, there is one boss as well. So okay,
but there's other really good stuff. I don't want to talk over them right now because
in-game, very much in-game, quite difficult, and he is guarding a lot of Reversium, and also again can drop a unique. And I'm pretty sure all those bosses drop a pretty substantial amount of gold as well.
So you've kind of got like 5 micro league mechanics kind of just there also, like on top of all that stuff. But as I said, it wasn't really covered like that extensively in the video. So I guess that was something that people, like that's your kind of like main combat stuff that you're kind of doing, that's in area. And
you've got the bosses like attacking your town and
there's a couple of things like that. So yeah, there's kind of other things.
Sentinel, Calandra,
there's actually a lot going
Wildwood.
on with that, that more so than what was kind of explained.
But all that to say, there's a lot of words to say that it seems like a classic fight monster in circle.
For sure.
Fight monster in circle.
Yeah, it's 1, 2, it's 2, 3, 5.
Definitely
so yeah, 4
classic
encounters fight monsters in circle, and 1 is fight monsters in the whole area.
Perfect.
Yeah,
those are
classics.
everybody's favorite. So even if you're not that into the meta progression side of things, it's still a fight monster in circle league.
Yes, of course.
Good. Sure. It all comes back to that.
It is expected, and again, you can. There's no real harm in like just doing that for as long as you want, accumulating as much gold as you want, and then if you want to engage with the town later or something, that's
weren't there when
something you can
Einhar
do.
and 3 other masks
End of the
became
day,
permanent,
the
but get
gold
the
is
same vibe?
going to be your primary restriction. So being able to just farm for ages and get a whole bunch of gold isn't going to like add.
I think at this point they needed to mess with everything. I think it's a good messing with everything.
Very much a take it at your own leisure.
100%, 100%, yes.
That touches on the next question, and the one that when I watched it, I was like, this is the thing people might be most concerned about, is the somewhat controversial area of game design, timers, right?
Yeah,
so
sure.
we worried that this would give people ick because they just have that around timers.
I can see what you mean. And like that was honestly when I was talking to Mark about like, what's the thing that's going to be the controversial thing about the league, that was certainly up there. One thing that we're wanting to make sure that's really clear though is that you can stack a lot of work like on like in your town that can be done in a queue without you having to come back. So it's not like you have to come back every freaking hour to like check on anything, right? Like you you can queue days of work and like if you're going up your map runners, for example, like you've got your big queue there that you can do, and then like you can just come back and then they've done all the maps, you get all the loot from all of them.
So you can just
AFK league, dude.
It also doesn't mean it's so long.
It's the perfect
Like,
league for picking
there's
up a
these
regular
sweet spots
job.
in time that we've really aimed for, right? Anything too short, highly annoying.
Check it all
And
the
then anything too long feels like a mobile game. Right? So we have this kind of sweet spots for a lot of them where it's like for example, you have your queue of maps, but I think I will note, like I'm going to say some times, but it is like highly variable, and you have the agency based on how much gold you have, the skilled workers you have. You can
Raider
get these
was
things
just
pretty
too
damn
strong,
quick.
dude.
You can. But you can also have them take a bit longer, and it's not necessarily the right or wrong answer to go either way. So if you want faster turnaround on your rewards, you do have some agency on that. It'll just cost more gold to do so. And if you want to have like a slower turnaround, and focus your gold somewhere else, that is entirely up to you if you want to do that. So it's got a lot of agency. However, we have been experimenting with numbers like a lot. It has been discussed constantly. And for example, with the shipping, you had the port of Kalguur. That's the one that has the longest distance, or the 1,500 kilometers. That does take the longest. And I currently believe it's like, towards even 10 hours. But there are ones that are going to take less than 1 hour. And now there are advantages, like a longer shipment will yield better rewards and have higher risk and different rewards. Each port has different unique rewards, and a closer one, but it's not like such a differential that you're always going to do. Well, it's hard for me to predict exactly what players will think that is the best answer, but it shouldn't be the case that you're always doing the thing that takes you feel like you have to do the thing that takes like 10 hours. So there's lots of quick things, lots of long things, and it's kind of up to you how you want to engage with that. And I think that's honestly what mostly differentiates a lot of this, aside with the fact it's also gated by gold, which requires you to actually play the game. It's not like it's just some AFK town. At the end of the day, you have to be playing in order to actually achieve this, killing monsters, looting loot. So there's heaps of stuff there, but we have aimed for that exact sweet spot such that if you are playing, it's not highly annoying, and also not like I never get my rewards. Like it's going to be pretty bad if you're like I'm level let's say you're in Act 1 and you unlock your shipping and you send your shipping and you're like, okay, I'm not going to get that back till I'm level 80.
The ritual problem.
That's just terrible, right? So yes, there are very quick turnarounds as well. For things like that, and then there are longer turnarounds when you're willing to spend that time to do so. And noting there are 3 ships, you could send one to a far port and then one to a close port, so you can get some ships turning around with high frequency and another turning around with a longer frequency. And the same with the mapping. It's entirely based on the difficulty of the maps, and again how skilled your runners are. So if you want to have higher turnarounds as well, you can put in either easier maps, lower tier maps, or you can put in more difficult maps. Now, I did note in the live stream the timer on the mining was before we had done any iteration, so I'm pretty sure it had some real absurd amount of time to mine that ore. That was just a straight mistake. Does not take that long. It is much quicker.
It's also worth mentioning with the stuff is that, like as I was saying with the queues, like, okay, you can just put as many, like when you find resources and there's that sort of mining queue, it's not like you have
The
to
micromanagement sounds like
every time.
it can be fun. It's like fun if it's not like something that you need to do super often, right? If it naturally integrates with like your natural downtimes where you just want to chill and hang in your hideout.
You have to come back and reset them. Like for example, with the mapping, the queue is long enough that you can just like jam a bunch of stuff in there, and then like what I don't want is you to feel like you have to like wake up in the middle of the night and like freaking put more stuff in there and then come back. That's what I want to avoid. Like it should be that you're still coming back at the normal time that you would play. Like that is our design intent, and so if that's not, like we need to make sure that we're balancing it correctly so that that's the case. That you don't feel pressured to like log in at some time you wouldn't normally do it.
Yeah, this sort of thing can be fun because it's like you get to come back to rewards and progress, and everybody loves progress and progression, right?
For sure.
Yeah, but it can quickly lead to fear of missing out.
But I was definitely concerned about that idea that would have to. I feel like if I didn't get on in half an hour after I was planning on logging off, I wouldn't be able to reallocate my workers.
Right.
But you don't have. It just does.
It just doesn't.
Well, we're not making a mobile game here. I know that's the
and you can't pay to skip
association.
any of these timers.
Don't you guys have fun?
Of course not. And I'm not going to also at one point. I know. Look, these things are always going to be divisive. They're not necessarily going to be globally loved. And part of it is just you're going to have to try it to understand. That the concept of a timer is scary to start with. But I'm also on the other hand not going to sit here about complaining about the cold currency thing and then also implement something that on the other hand I'm going to have equal levels of frustration with myself as a player. Surprisingly, but you
want to play this after all, don't you?
100. Of course I want to play it. I'm never going to make a game I don't want to play. So yeah, my hope is, but of course that assumes we get it right. The good thing is we're very, very fast to react to this stuff. So if the timers are tilted one way or another, we have so many levers we can adjust to rebalance. It is, of course, we get our internal feedback, we get our alpha feedback on the times, but that's still a very small subset compared to everyone. So I could expect, if things aren't right, if they're off, if something is taking too long or too short, or there's not enough agency, we're very, very quick to be flexible to that stuff and react to it if we have to. But yeah, it's interesting and it's new for damn sure. But I'd say I'm more on this, definitely on the side of excited over worried.
Good.
But there's always a little bit of worry there. It comes with the job, and
I like that you guys are still trying new things. Whether they work out or not.
100%. A large part of what we always try and do is push the boundary, right? Like just doing the safe thing over and over and over again can make things feel quite stale. So we definitely want to take risks and see where they go and see how they evolve, and because ultimately I believe that makes the best game possible for sure.
Keep trying it. One more quick nuance about that is the progress
I
on time
absolutely agree. Like
even
they may not always have the killer leagues,
so
but they always try
you don't
something.
have to stay logged in, online to speed things up. Good stuff.
The only things that can happen that disrupt it, which is obviously like if your map, if your ship gets commandeered, it can get commandeered offline or online, right? So it can stop it. It isn't something that happens like ultra frequently, and you can avoid it. You can get it to the point where a commandeering will not occur, and the same with your Atlas runners being kidnapped. That can occur online or offline, but again, it is avoidable. It doesn't have to happen. Like if you can get good enough people and run slightly easier content, and all of a sudden there's no risk of your Atlas runners failing or anything like that.
Yeah. Speaking of risk, so how does this scale with like map tiers and map effect and stuff like that? So as you move up through maps, do you get more resources, more gold? Does it scale with like map quantity? So your mods.
Yep. Gold scales with everything that drops would scale with. In party, I get my gold, you get your gold. We cannot share gold. Obviously, there's no point in having it. If you can't trade it, then all of a sudden, items do not sell for gold, so it's not like you can trade items to bypass that. But everything, item map quantity scales gold. Yep, all the same. It's auto pickup, obviously. With obviously the new enhanced item pickup radius, and the amount of ore also should scale with quantity. Yes, obviously, much like sulfite, I guess, from Delve. That's probably one of the closest comparisons in terms of like giving you a resource.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So it seemed like mostly gold was used to upgrade the buildings and things like that in your town, and that sort of progress is mostly through that. So the resources are all for this shipping, to get this risk-reward system, to get currency and gear and stuff like that. And the multiple pages of currency thing, that looked a bit crazy. Is that for real? Like, how much work is getting 3 pages of Chaos Orbs and Divines and stuff?
That's crazy.
That's that agency I'm talking about as well, where a long trip should yield a lot of loot. Now, we have made some changes since then where what we're doing is, instead of because we were scaling rewards on quite a quantitative axis, and we've moved a lot of that into more qualitative, so that like instead of getting so much more currency linearly, you're getting better currency instead of more, just so it's less of that
alts roll up into chaos and whatnot.
Yeah, if you save up, like you can just be like, I'm just going to play, get all the gold and acquire as many resources as I can, and send a shipment that's like maxed out in value, and then put the best possible ship workers on there, because you don't want to lose that shipment, I'll tell you that, and send it to the farthest thing. Like, you'll get back a ton of loot, but of course you have to. You're now getting 1 week of loot all in one go. You know what I mean? Like, you will get an absolute ton. Which
People in
some people will
software
find
crazy if they don't play multi-account and queue stuff.
But yes, we are trying to not. Obviously, it shouldn't be that you're just getting like 50 pages of items, but you'll get some amount, and ideally the quality of the items get better as you send more, as opposed to just the quantity. Yeah.
I saw a question in chat as well. The wages, like, how does that work with when's that getting paid? Like, do you get overdrafted account fees? Like, what are we dealing with here?
So you have to take your gold. So you've got your personal gold, and then there's a treasury, and you want to put the gold in the treasury, and the wages only take from the treasury. And the reason for that is so that you're not like just randomly losing your gold. That you're like, okay, I'm going to get to 60,000 so I can buy these items. All of a sudden it's just like draining it, and you like can't figure out. So
you couldn't log in for a week
wages are paid from the treasury. You can do this via Johan or via the village map. There's just you hit add, drag, set an amount, hit add, it goes there. And yeah, they are just continuously drained from that. So it's not like it doesn't really come in chunks. It's like continuously going.
And do they unionize if you don't put enough money in there, or?
Not in Ray class to know.
No worker protection in Ray class.
All of a sudden you might find you're collaborating with those pirates and with those bandits, and like arranging. You're arranging them to come in and kidnap people more often.
Imagine botters not setting up accounts to run like areas and to pick up the currency, but to actually set up accounts so that they can just give them maps, and they will like let them let the league mechanic run the maps.
Same goal, I guess, on the same team, but they just want their money. That's fine.
Yes, the children yearn for the mines. So I cracked up when I saw the map running teams auto simulating
100
map
divines
thing.
by mistake for Super
So do
Luffy.
they actually simulate running the map?
They said that they would. They said that they would make the price shown, right? Like, what is the most common traded value for that sort of thing that you want to sell? And then I think they would also give you a warning if you like severely underpriced or overpriced to the point where it's either not going to sell at all or you're going to rip yourself off. But I don't know.
You trust the workers to pick up the right items, because like. What if like what if it's filters? Like you like get back your items and you're like, damn it, I know you left a mage blood on the ground. I just know you did. But yeah, anyway, you're not going to think about that, obviously. I mean, you can if you want, but yes, you do get it back. So if you send them to I can't remember which maps. We've shuffled all the div cards around, so I'm not sure which maps drop what.
Now
But
we
whatever,
can too.
whatever one drops Mage Blood, if you put that base type in, you the Mage Blood card, you will get that card out. That is the way to get that. Of course, generally people like running that themselves. So.
And you're telling me that like if it's a Hydra map, they'll bring a Hydra fragment back for you.
Yep, if you put in a Hydra map and they clear it successfully, it's worth noting they have a percentage amount of clear. And you can get that as high as you possibly can, but sometimes they get through like 50% of it and die because you put the map in as too hard.
Yeah,
You'll get 50%
are
of
they
the
burning
items.
6 portals halfway through a Hydra map?
Yeah. Some of the, if you're not sending elite people, they're kind of bad.
There's different quality of map runners just as there is in Path of Exile players.
if you're sending your miners into the mapping, they don't know what to do. They're just like, I've tried mining the monsters and I
Dying
failed
on the first pack.
But yeah, they'll bring that back. You chuck in a map with 5 delirium orbs, they'll probably all die. But if they don't, they'll bring you back some splinters and some delirium rewards.
So what's like the most sketch, like juiced up map that they can run here if you get the best of the best?
I mean, the same as the player, right? A fully a prop corrupted T17 with, whatever else is bloody on it. I mean, or 16.
Right.
I mean, they'll probably they might get. Sometimes you actually. It's not mistake proof. You can put it in, and it can be like they have a 1% chance of 1% of the map will be
Good
cleared.
luck, guys.
And you put it in, and you see the timer count down like 2 seconds, and then they fail, and you're like, oh, they just
6
died.
portals gone in 2 seconds.
They just died to the first monster.
Damn, that's almost as bad as me.
So yeah, you don't want to do that. But I mean, you technically can. You can just send them to die. Now they don't. In that case, they don't actually permanently die. That can happen. And you actually can lose the worker.
Oh, wow.
There is a
okay.
sync on that, so you are constantly trying to find more, but it doesn't happen that often. And again, it is mostly avoidable by playing a little bit more safe instead of just sending them to their demise all the time.
This whole thing blows my mind. I just love the idea that we can just have like a bunch of plebs now to farm our fragments for it, so we can focus on bossing, like kings, while they do the peasant work in fields. Crazy. How did you resist the temptation to not go super hard on this and let us gear them and make parties and change their loot?
Early on there was all sorts of stuff like that we were talking about. It was like we were going full mercenary system with all sorts of stuff for a while, but it was too much and it was too complicated. So we decided not to in the end. But the whole auto running maps thing was certainly something we were very keen on very early in the league.
This massive expansion.
Yeah.
This is actually the downscoped version. We certainly had mercenaries as in the first concept, and it was like you can send your mercenaries either on the ships or to the maps, and you can gear them up, and you can give them skills, and they have specializations. It's like
it was just too much though. It was too much management, too much
See, they already downscaled the micromanagement. Sounds good.
So much going on.
Different
here.
league's problem now.
But yeah, that does kind of sound like another league that I want, though. I'm not gonna lie. I like this auto exile thing.
Right.
Auto
Exile
exile.
team manager, kind of like a sports manager game. Yeah. Awesome. Maybe for the future.
Maybe.
All right. So yeah, that features list, that video just kept going. You guys also showed runesmithing, which is like a new take on bench crafting, but as enchantments. These rune words, are they all known recipes, or is there some discovery process there?
So you start with a few available. So there are different runes, different names. So there's like a sun rune, life rune, power rune. There's all these different names, and you start, I believe. You start with all the ones that require only sun runes, and then once you get a life rune, you can take it to Danig, and he's like, "Oh, now I can learn all of the things that require life rune."
Oh,
and then
he's
so
doing
on.
the hard work.
So I mean,
Nice.
the Kalguurans are the ones who know how to do it. You're just bringing them the resources for it. So you eventually work your way up to the very most powerful ones, and you get things like what you saw there. There was the Fire Mjolnir, which you can put on one hand or two hand axe. What we've done is with a lot of the basic outcomes, you can apply that to any weapon, but with a lot of the very specialized ones, you can only apply it to one type of class. So the idea there isn't that every build is just now doing the Doomfletch Prism on any weapon, the one that we saw on the live stream. It's no, that specifically goes on two-handed maces. And then I think the Fire Mjolnir one that was there goes on, I think it's one-handed axes.
Okay.
Each thing goes on specifically one weapon, and what it allows you to do is take. So we've taken an interesting bow unique mechanic, and now you can put it on like some dagger or something like that.
New builds, cool.
Yeah, and they get pretty powerful as far as like I think there's one that is like
slot, they have to be powerful.
100. You can
Right.
100% reduce
Don't
duration
they?
of like soul gain prevention for socketed gems on daggers, and like there's freaking every 20 seconds
I
or
guess
something
they
you
don't.
get haunted by a different torment spirit, and I think there's like a rotating shrine buff one, so it's like every X
they're an
seconds you're getting a new
enchant. Okay,
shrine buff
crazy.
on you, and not a lesser shrine,
Well,
by
then
the
they
way.
take the enchant
And
slot.
sometimes including divine shrine as well, so you can just be like, I'm just going to sit here until I'm immortal, and then I'll do the
Tier
boss.
17 mapping strategy.
But those all require the highest tier rune, which we expect to be very, very expensive.
So
yeah,
are
there's
these
some-
something that you can trade, the runes, between players?
Yeah, 100%, 100%. Yeah. Yes, they all come, primarily all come from shipping.
Yep.
Which you can do pretty early in the game, but I suspect
Boating.
late game. And then they are considered a
Shipping league.
like additional bonus from shipping, where it's like if you trade
Yeah,
to the
ship it
Kalguurs,
crucial.
they'll send you that back, and the more you send them, the more runes they'll send you, because they're like, thanks for doing business with us.
Yeah, do you know what they're sending you back when you send them a shipment, or is it kind of just like...
No, we've intentionally been quite vague with that, just
Yeah.
so people can figure it out. Now, it isn't. It is. There's some determinism, and then some that's just influenced. So, like, I can say, for example, generally crops are giving you back currency, and there's some
Okay.
general influence. But we want people to figure that out and experiment and make up their
right.
mind as to what they think is the best combinations to send
certain
to different
locations,
ports.
certain resources are going to give certain rewards back that players can learn.
And there are bonuses on the port. So, like, you, I think in the numbers there it's set 100. So, at any given time, it's like they'll pay double for wheat. Or I'll pay, and then once you fill that order,
Cool.
So after you've sent 10,000 wheat, they might be like, all right, now we're going to pay triple for the next 500 vericium you send us, and stuff like that. So you are changing your shipments to different ports based on those bonuses. And then, like, for example, the item for disenchanting, just a random slight pivot here, but the item you get from disenchanting, the thaumaturgic dust, that is a multiplier on your shipment value. So whatever you send, you then send a dust. So if you send some amount of dust, it'll just double your shipment value. And so that one, so you know, it's almost like
key.
a meta reward mechanic in that regard.
And that's from grinding up your gear in the gear grinder thing.
that's
That's
from-
also another feature
yes.
that was in there.
Yeah.
And yep, you get a lot more dust for destroy. So just to add some value to some 1 Chaos T0 uniques, disenchant them, because they will give you the most. They will give you the most
so
dust.
rarity is the key there. So
Generally it's like better items give you more, so 6 mods, higher 10 modifiers, and then rarity higher.
you guys like
rarity
adding
uniques
sneaky
and
new
whatnot.
item sinks, don't you? I like that, yeah. Trying to get those 1C items to 2C.
I mean, it just it turns garbage items into good items is the idea, or into
into
more
dust.
tickets at good items. Well, yeah, but the point being, the dust is the ticket
Yeah.
at better items. You know, yeah.
Gotcha. Awesome. So another thing, recombination returns from Sentinel.
How much
it was
worse
mentioned
is
that it's
it?
not going to be as strong as it was. It was obviously one of the strongest crafting mechanics we had outside of maybe Necropolis and that. In what ways is it weaker now?
There's 2 things that have mostly changed about it. One is, and not that I can even specifically remember exactly how it all works, but there was all this like chance to mutate stuff that was going on with it. That's all gone. It just
So it can't
combines
get
the
special
items
mods
straight from
anymore.
what it does.
The items
Yeah.
together. So is
Yeah.
there like the unique extra mechanic, like modifiers that can randomly appear? Is that gone?
No, those are gone.
All right.
And so it is just merged 2 items together. The other thing that I like about doing it this way, as opposed to having it gated behind a currency item, is that you can actually engage with it earlier in the game. Now, I know that's going to be pretty unorthodox for most existing players, but it's still something you can choose to now engage with, because the gold cost is based on the item level of the item input, and so you can have it be very, very cheap early and more expensive later. And
I
so
like
it just
that.
opens it up to more players instead of just being this thing that you're only ever going to use on the best of the best of the best.
Fun, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. I like that scalability that you can use it early.
Or even like early maps. You know,
That's
something that feels
amazing.
super
That's
punishing
really
and,
good-
like, you can do
good
things
idea.
Like that, if you want to, of course.
Well, it's a good mechanic for that, but something that wasn't really accessible.
Yes, correct. Yeah, for sure. But yeah, and I know Sentinel was added. They don't drop recombinators now because it's done through this mean. So despite Sentinel
They're
being
just
there,
a thing that you can randomly find in in maps to get more loot. and have
just
a
more
spicier
juicing. Yep.
gameplay. Yeah, and you've done a bit of that
Juice.
too. So in addition to the new campaign stuff, making the campaign more interesting just with this random little encounters, you've got more stuff just appearing in maps as well. So Wildwood and Sentinel as well.
Yep. Why not?
Yeah, why not, eh?
More juice.
Love it.
It's fun. I like the idea of just the random encounters. Like, they're not on the Atlas tree right now. That doesn't mean they never will be. But I like the fact that there's a handful of things that are just randomly spawning, and so you're doing your rotation, and that throws a little bit of a spanner in the works, and only in a positive element, right? It's not like it
Well,
takes
especially
anything
for
away.
things like that are effectively just, this will give you more loot and currency and stuff. So like Wildwood and Sentinel, they're just about like giving you a big boost to your magic find. So you might not necessarily want those to be something that players can have active all of the time, but rather as like a cool bonus that randomly appears to make your map spicy.
That is the other benefit, because it is random and not something that you can just have guaranteed.
It's not
they
whopping your play.
They can be stronger.
Yeah.
They can be more
yeah,
impactful
true.
as a result. Yeah.
I mean, Doriani's,
Otherwise,
you could
they
build
have to
that
match the
before.
exact power of every other league on
But yeah,
thing you can
going to
invest
be
into
better
onto
with
the
the
atmosphere.
Calandra.
Cool. So there was the mention of those like 3 bosses that can disrupt your shipping and all that sort of stuff. When they take something hostage, is just talking about like this gameplay. What is that gameplay like? Are you going into like random fights, or is it always a boss fight that you're going into when you're...
It's always a boss fight.
Yep.
Your Atlas runners will always be taken by the Bandit Lord. Your shipment will always be commandeered by the Admiral, whatever his name is, I forgot. Internal name by Pirate Boss. They get named and I don't remember them all the time.
Admiral Hart.
And then the one you find in the world is always the same one as well. And then the you pretty much just go, it'll notify you, and then you go back to the town to King's March, and the NPC will just be like, here's a portal, go there, kill this person, or don't. If you don't want to. Like if you feel like you're going to fail, you shouldn't go and do it, right? And you can bring your party members, but you can only enter it once. Like once you die, you cannot re-enter. So one shot only.
Okay, let's take a little bit of a turn now, looking backwards at Necropolis and reflecting on some of the changes that happened in it. First, the overall endgame overhaul, such as the removal of sextants and the massive Scarab rework. How do you just feel about that overall, both of you first? How that went, the endgame overhaul?
I do think overall good, but it's very easy for that to get, looked at from a perspective of a few things that are bad and then looking at it badly. Like there are certainly some things that were imperfect, and we are making some measures to change that. But I do think overall the shakeup was pretty healthy. And then when I talk about the bad things, I'm talking like the T17 maps being too hard, right? Yep. And that kind of it overshadows a lot of what's good about it, because there's these few things that aren't right. And then I'm also talking like, okay, we removed Wandering Path, great, and then we added Back to Basics, which is also gone now, by the way, just to clarify, which wasn't mentioned there. Like Back to Basics was even more unhealthy than Wandering Path, or equally unhealthy depending, but both of them not good, not achieving the philosophy we want. So we didn't, because of that, and because Back to Basics became the meta, it ended up like not even evolving that much. And so I'm hoping with this now set of changes, but all of that ultimately comes about with, because what's going to happen is when you are releasing content on this scale, and I am certainly a risk taker, I like to push the boundaries and all that, you are going to have these things happen. It is borderline impossible for us to test everything, and that's where you see a lot of the reactionary patches that we did early in the league to try and fix and improve everything.
That definitely was something that was really hard, just for the team as well, and like it's also very hard just decision making about, is this something that should be fixed or is it not? Like it was pretty rough at the start there, and I think that is something we're trying to improve this time around by looking more at the extremes and like really zeroing in. So there's definitely a mandate to QA now of like, okay, we need to really work out like what is the actual maximum possible thing for this, and like like what is the difficulty of what that results in. Like is it okay? Like is the difficulty versus reward correct for what the players can do here? This kind of thing, and it's something obviously that we should have been like thinking more about before, and like it's something that we're really making sure this time we'll try and do better. But it's tough because like even thinking about what the most extreme case is can be really hard. Like so many things took us by surprise in terms of like particular combinations of things. Like there's so many just ways to combine stuff, and like from so much content from the past as well, that like it's like it's hard to find. Like the fact that there were people finding new ways to abuse stuff even weeks after the it came out just sort of shows you that like there's just it was kind of nuts.
Yeah, you guys asked me an interesting question yesterday when I first came in. It was like, how does 150 uniques from a single boss sound to you? I'm like, that sounds crazy. What are you talking about?
So I guess we'll talk about some of the things that were happening that people weren't aware of. So there was a Reddit thread, and so I can't remember how far into the league, that was pretty much like, what the heck has happened to the prices of T0 uniques?
Yep.
And you had like Defiance of Destiny at like 4C. It was like actual craziness. And upon looking at this, and oh no, none of this was anyone abusing or exploiting anything.
Not a bug or anything, yeah.
In fact, I think, mate, did we tell you the value of how many unique items were dropping in some of these?
I told him.
I was going to ask you to guess, but we were getting over 100,000 unique items in some instances, and I'm not even talking in a map.
In a single map.
And I'm not talking I'm not talking a 6-man group. I'm talking solo players who are able to achieve this, and this is where a lot of those things, so for example, the Shaper Touched rarity, there were just so many layers of multipliers that if used correctly altogether, but you ended up with less than 100 people on the entire realm acquiring over 99% of all T0 uniques. And so we have gone and looked at all that and been like, okay, with this, that is highly compromising the economy and the integrity of the economy, and we fixed some of this last league, but we are doing more of it this time to make sure that your average and above average player isn't like having the economy ruined as their experience, but we're just really, really controlling that like high top end. And I'm talking like most people would never have known this was happening. They would have just been like, where are all these uniques coming from?
Right.
It's not a bug. It's just the math of
it's just
rarity
exactly.
and quantity.
There's
Clever use of
legal
game
stuff
mechanics.
There's always a question with stuff like that, because generally speaking, we have the policy of no mid-act nerfs, and yet there were certain cases, and that was really tough the last league, just because we did do some changes to certain mechanics, which we wouldn't normally do because it was just so ridiculous. Like there was stuff going on there that just was not okay.
I saw a screenshot of like one of the monsters that would be part of this, and it was like, it had a list of modifiers that was the entire screen, right?
Right. We were talking yesterday about whether or not we need a way to collapse the display of the number of essences underneath something's life bar, and it's like, where are we at? Which, by the way, it's still there, so it's like, a thing that you can still do. But yeah, it's and I'm not talking like we're getting rid of all the uniques. Like that's what I'm saying. I'm asking you, is 150 all right? And you're like, that sounds excessive. And I'm like, well, it's like several hundred times less than what it was, but it's still top off screen, bottom off screen of unique items just everywhere. And that's just like a single monster. You get the whole rares in the area. So we want it to be extreme. Like, don't get me wrong, but it shouldn't be that the entire economy is ruined by 100 people who aren't, or a few people even, who aren't even abusing anything or exploiting anything or doing anything illegitimate. Like, and the problem is, that's where we got into that state where it was like, all right, do we have to nerf X, A, B, C, and D as we kind of discovering and figuring out these strategies? And it's like, let alone the fact that this stuff absolutely rams the performance of the instances. Right?
That's
I don't know if people saw it when those
stress on the servers.
Meat sacks were dying, and you'd get like 6-second lag spikes while it's generating the unique items. And so anyway, a lot of it's much more controlled now. We've actually assessed exactly where all that was coming from. We've taken a lot of caution to not nerf the average, above average, even further than that.
A normal player should not see any change.
Yeah.
I mean, and I loved how gloves off it's feeling with your ridiculous changes to the end game here. Like, it feels like you've really opened up over this past couple of leagues to
100%
change stuff pretty wildly.
Again, I go back to that. Go back to that philosophy of like, if we can do stuff to make things better, we do it. And it's just the unfortunate reality is that, and I'm ultimately the one pushing most people to do this for PoE 1, and the unfortunate reality is it comes with risks, and as a result, failures, of which are 100% on me, like without question. And that's why, again, like straight after the patches, it's like full hands on deck trying to make sure everything is as good as possible. And then we get into a little bit of that difficulty of thinking some people want the game to stay as it is, regardless of the state, and a lot of people want it to keep changing. And we get into this kind of like, which side of this fence do we fall on? And we have to really evaluate each change and do it. But look, ideally, the changes wouldn't be necessary. But when you're changing this much, doing patches this massive, this quickly, some of it is inevitable. I would hate to I personally, and you could convince me, you could tell me I'm wrong about this. You might be able to convince me. I would prefer that we do everything possible with the time allocated, as opposed to like play it safe, do a small patch and give it there. And yeah, sure, it's safe. Less will go wrong, but at the end of the day, there's way less to do, way less fun, way less changes, less to learn and evolve with, and it just feels like. I suspect at the end of the day it'll be way more boring, even though it might be more safe. Yeah. So again, it's possible that I'm gone too far one direction, and we have pulled back a little bit here on some of that safety. But like, I never want to get to the point where we're releasing something flat and stale just because it's safe. I want to always be making sure that we're doing everything to make things as fun and exciting and the best as possible for everyone, including myself when I play the game.
Well, these updates have felt way more energetic. I think it's refreshing, I think, for a lot of us who've been playing for 10 years at this point.
Right.
It's pretty cool stuff. So on the tier 17 maps, they were intended to be like a gateway to Uber bosses, but they ended up being harder and more restrictive than that actual content. And we had Uber boss viable builds, really struggling with that actual content. So how are you kind of changing things with that, or are you happy with it, where that's at?
I mean, the ultimate numerical change to T17 monsters is that they have it's approximately 55% less life, so they have less than half the life they had before and 30% less damage, which seems extreme.
Log in.
And I will just note that was like actually not intended.
Yeah, I had an interesting story about that.
Yeah, it's kind of unfortunate that two different designers did the life change to T17 without realizing the other person had already done it.
That's so funny.
So that was kind of like an unintended side effect. But it's like when you come down to, so why the hell are these monsters so damn tough? And then we're like, oh crap,
they got doubled twice.
There were two people who made this change independent of each other.
We have counted that on the bosses to some degree, so they are, not just like an absolute joke now.
Classic.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, just the monsters themselves, which it did compound with back to basics and the mod scaling, like the thing. Once you have like 400% increased area of effect on the monsters, it's kind of like, okay, this is like getting a little, on the bosses I should say, it's like this is getting a little bit out of hand. Like, how can I dodge this mechanic that is larger than the arena? You could argue they're signing themselves up for it, but then it's like you want that for the rest of the map, which then means the bosses are pretty much like impossible. Strong word to use because everything's always possible with enough, build ruckus going on. But anyway, it wasn't right. Like, these things weren't right. So hopefully with back to basics removed and, the changes to T17s, implicitly it should be more approachable to more players. Less you have to play like a subset of 10, 12 builds in order to achieve them. Like, it should be way more open. Obviously with all the melee builds as well.
Tons of melee.
That should be a hell of a lot more viable this time. So I would expect a lot more players to, be enjoying those as opposed to, because again, we're solving the item quantity thing where it's like we want to open up more builds and make you feel less like you have to play certain things. So then T17's being that hard resulted in the exact same thing. These are not intentional things. When you get to Uber Pinnacle, it's all right for the number of builds to reduce drastically because it's like you want to be a boss killer at that point, or that's fine. But when we're just talking about like the top tier of maps, it's not okay to have it be so constrained there. So just mistakes were made, honestly, and they hopefully are now fixed.
Yeah.
Well,
so the main design of the modifiers on these maps is these build bricking modifiers, ones that are just basically not doable.
I think the maps were just too hard for the content that was gated behind them, right? Like, if you just want to make some pinnacle maps.
I personally just think it is important that you actually are investing in rolling your map and finding the
You can make insanely hard maps, but you just can't gate other stuff behind them.
How you can overcome the modifiers. And I know that's probably not a popular opinion. I very much understand that a lot of people are just like, I can go, and that's all I want to do. But I think especially with the upper tier like that and the extra layer of rewards that they're giving, I think you should have to invest more currency into it and more thought into it, or be like, oh, this is a real good map, it's got like some specific reward modifiers you want, but there's this one bad thing I'm gonna have to deal with, and then you actually do commit to dealing with it. It again hopefully adds more ebbs and flows to the process, as opposed to it again just being like out go and run, and that can be quite where some people like that, and that's okay. You can still obviously do that with 16s. I do like these things having an impact on your build, just not to either one, it should be avoidable and or not to the extent it was before, and again, investing into them, rolling them, like it's certainly not something I'd want to stray away from. I actually consider it a success when you have to re-roll your maps. Again, probably a controversial take, but I think it is a much better thing getting an actual... Like, it feels more like an actual game mechanic as opposed to like, well, at the point it's just Alk and Go, and Alks are worth so little. Why you just drop them rare, and like, why are you even engaging with the currency on maps system?
Why have mods if the mods don't matter?
Do you take like some consideration to how many chaos, for example, you expect someone to put into a map to produce mods that are on average viable for their build that they're doing?
Yeah, runnable.
We do, yes. So I mean, what? Not in the context of a build here, but like for example, we were like, okay, if we want to make T17s able to be easier, like should we reduce it back to 4 to 6 modifiers?
Yep.
But then you just the argument, the reason why we never did that just this league is because
You take the
now it's even
identity
more
away.
chaos you have to invest to get 6 modifiers, because the right answer is probably to run 6 modifiers because it gives the best rewards. And so it's like, well, that's just going to massively increase the amount of chaos orbing someone has to do on those maps. So let's not do it that way. Let's find a different way to do it. So we're definitely considering how many you're having to. From a like hyper build specific, it's like if I'm playing this exact specific build, how many chaos on average do I need to avoid it? No, not like hyper specific, but in terms of like broad mechanics, we do generally try and consider that.
Yeah, I imagine you'd be taking like a range of builds and saying, oh, on average, it's going to take about 10, 20 rolls to produce a map you want to run on this character.
But my hope is that some people at least look at it and go, okay, if I just change this one thing, then I can still run it. So it's not always just like, I know this is probably the preferred strategy. In fact, I'll do it myself probably most of the time. You just avoid anything that's going to cause any friction to your character. But like, there are probably a good chunk of players who are just like, I will deal with this bit of friction by either slowing down a little bit or changing something or subbing something out, or it's good for those players to be able to do that, because then technically they're having to invest less currency. Whether or not it's worth the payoff, it's up to them really to decide that. But
you want the mods to matter, and I get that, and these certainly do matter, but how do you feel about it versus modifiers that do things like, say, this modifier adds these certain sorts of packs of monsters to the map that are very difficult, but also increasing the reward and making the map more interesting by making it more different, as opposed to something like, your energy shield is turned off?
The problem you have with things that are implicitly adding direct rewards beyond certain other things is obviously the issue of the fact that you now feel like you have to roll for them. And you saw
like
this with the
area
Shaper
is a maze.
And with the Shaper Touch modifier earlier this league before it was changed, all of a sudden you're spending more currency on the maps than you were avoiding the builds, because now you are not only having to get a specific rewarding outcome, you're having to dodge the build things as well. And so it was even more. And as we've removed some mods this league, like I know the barrels was one of them where people were going for the barrels, and it's a couple. We've removed a few of those, like, sink currency into this. I would actually expect the amount of chaos you're sinking into these is less this league because we've removed those. But we have kept some, but like we've also then made them rarer, so you're like less likely. But then which I know you could say is counterintuitive to investing currency, because now you have to invest more if you have to get them. But
I mean, with all this hype around the currency trading auction halls, we might actually have to play trade, right?
It as a surprise, as opposed to when it's kind of within reach, you will just sink currency until it's there. But I actually do like the fact that, like, I liked the days back when you would roll for a lot of the maze and then you'd exalt the maps and stuff like that. That stuff was I found that quite enjoyable.
It was kind of like
there's a time and a place for that, and it's called Ruthless.
Sure. So yeah, we're not obviously going in that path anymore, but there's still a little bit of it there. The mods still matter. Reward mods can be bad, but it's good to also have them. There's like a little bit of friction there, which is hard to get perfectly right. And then in the same sense, I mean, some of them are probably... There are some other small balance changes around T17s, like those bloody Revenant packs are like, were out of control. You all of a sudden the corpse is exploding that you can't even see. Like we did all of this like telegraphing improvements to detonate dead, and then like missed revenants.
Good stuff. Yeah.
So all of a sudden now you're just dead to this invisible corpse explosion, and like
Classic.
there's a few other fine-tuned balance around some of the T17 stuff to make it feel less terrible, and I think it's pretty good. I'm not going to say it's perfect, but I'm hoping that it's going to feel a lot better.
Should tier 17s be one of the most profitable things to farm?
I think yes. I mean, what is the argument for no?
I've just
You know,
seen
like,
discussion.
I don't
on
mean from
that
you. I just
topic
mean in general.
Yeah, like some people are, concerned about whether that's the thing that should be happening or not.
Well, should T16s before that? And you could argue, well, okay, T17s you have to trade for. And that's the real difference, is that if you want to run them permanently, you have to trade for them. But generally the economy sorts itself out there to some degree. It's just that it adds that extra layer of annoyance.
Yeah.
But then also if T17s were self-sustaining, then it was kind of like what differentiates them from 16s at that point. It's just back to what you were doing with 16s, except they're now purple with harder modifiers, and you could argue that's better or worse, except I really like the idea of that, when you are just generally playing and not engaging with,
Having
the
it
trades
be
at that
different?
level. You're just
What do you mean,
doing
Bowl
16s
League?
with
Obviously
the
it's melee,
occasionals
dude.
popping into 17s here and there.
Bowl League,
I
get
do
outta
think that
here.
is generally better. But I can see why it can be annoying for someone who's like, I have to trade for these because I don't want to run anything but them. But that kind of can always be argued to be the case for almost
additional
everything.
curse on bows and wands.
I mean, in
And-
some ways, T17s
Additional
are like,
curse is not as good as it used to be,
are the
though.
map scarcity that the map system used to have long ago at lower levels. It's like you've got this one tier that kind of has that sort of like you're not expected to necessarily, like if you're just playing without trade, to be able to just run it again and again for T17 specifically, and that's kind of also comes down to that same thing with the mods. It's like the reason you're caring about re-rolling and so on for T17s is
We
because of
don't
the
know
fact
for
that
sure
you
whether
don't
that's
necessarily
on
have-
both,
they're not just
though,
growing on
right?
trees.
I mean, I guess it is.
So that's why you've got a bit of a different philosophy there with the mods that they have on as well.
I know this stuff
Could
is
be
like
just
pretty
for like melee projectile attacks.
it's going to be pretty polarizing between people as to what's right there, but like it is very important to us that the ebbs and flows remain, and you don't just
It's
end up with
replica
this
headhunter,
flat,
though.
boring grind at the very top end like that. Like it should be
Magic.
evoking difficulty, and it shouldn't just feel completely just. It again, it gets further away from a game and more towards just a kind of AFKable slash, and I don't mean actually AFKable, but something where you're not really investing much emotion into and thought into, and it doesn't feel like you're playing at that point. It just feels like you're just going along with it. So I think it's very important to have the different spikes and things come and go, and to have friction and all of those things.
Yeah, but this
and
is
I think
selected.
without any of
Does
that,
it
you'd
hover?
find stuff
Does
would
it
get very
show the
boring
hover?
very quickly.
I don't know off the top of my head.
Just
I guess it
very
does.
quickly, how do you feel about the betrayal changes, like the change to the Veiled Chaos and the simplification of it as well? It feels like now it's mostly people just kind of spamming Katarina with maybe some consideration to getting some like div card stacks or something like that, but you're not really doing as much of the engaging with the board now, I think.
Betrayal is in a very bad state, for sure. I am
Okay.
not happy with it. It was on the list of 325's thing. I know, despite the fact we have so much, there was more. We didn't get round to doing it. It's
Yeah,
currently slated
that's
for
understandable,
326. I'm very much hoping we can do it then. The main thing I want to divorce is... so I actually just want there to be... there is one safe house, and that... and so all four connect to one thing. Sorry, how do I explain this? It's like effectively Katarina isn't tied to the safe house. Like you can do your safe house, and that will give you a ticket to Katarina. And so you just have one safe house that has the whole board on it, and you earn intelligence for it. And the people still have their reward association, and then doing
Not sure I
that gives you
understand
a
this.
itemized version of Katarina you can run separately. But the main thing is you're not linking the board to Katarina's, because there's always been this friction of do I min-max my Katarina outputs, or do I do my interesting board layout? And you're just at the point where it's like, screw all that, I just want as much mastermind intelligence as possible, so I'm not going to interact with anything on the board really, except for whatever might min-max that. And so yeah, I want to divorce those two things so that you don't have that conflict, because we have never been able to get that balance, and I don't even know if that's possible. You're always either going to want to like never run Katarina because it destroys your board state,
Or you're always gonna
always
wanna-
run Katarina because the Veiled Orb. And so I want to divorce those two things such that one doesn't destroy the other. Because it hasn't been right the whole time. So, and I think that will just be a much, much better if we do that. And then Katarina is just there as a thing you can do. You do the boss fight and you can trade for it. You can buy the tickets to it if you want. Or, and then you can do all the board
Give
interaction.
this man a raise.
Separately. You'll still
have no idea how
I
much
want to
money he makes.
min-max my safe house running to get tickets to Katarina, but what we can do is have a correlation of the chance of getting it or the number of the tickets you get to Katarina correlate to the state of the board somehow. But
Sounds
at
like
least
a
you're
good
not
league
gonna,
so
you
far.
don't.
He's
I don't
talking
ever want
about
it to be like I'm
potential
not
changes
going to
to
fight
Betrayal
Katarina because
that
I
he
don't
wants
want
to
to
do in the
reset the
future.
board. Like I don't think those two frictions should ever occur. It hasn't been right honestly since we released it. To be honest,
all right.
so.
Let's let him cook, eh? Let's let him
It does
cook.
sound like a good league.
So we should talk just a little bit about Necropolis itself. I know you're pretty excited for the mechanic. I was too, 'cause I love a good, thick crafting league. And it certainly ended up very powerful, but ultimately the crafting mechanic not that popular, I think, due to the friction of engaging with it, the corpses, managing all of that. But how do you feel about Necropolis in hindsight
Did they
now?
say anything about Frostblade? Nothing specific,
yeah,
but
definitely
they
that
probably
part
busted
is-
by a lot.
We kind of knew going in that it was more on the complicated side, for sure. Some things just kind of... It's not necessarily a problem for something to be a little bit more complicated like that, but it probably went a little bit too far. That being said, it was pretty damn powerful, especially after our changes we made very early into the league. In terms of getting like full T1 modded items, probably...
Dude, Sweep does like more than double the damage it did before at level 20, and like Heavy Strike does almost double but doesn't knock back anymore. And like they said, all melee skills have been rebalanced completely. It's like that's about the numbers that you get, like between I think 1.5 and 2 times as much damage as before.
Would I have changed it now knowing that?
Oh, but things also cost more mana, but not as much as spells.
Start, but I would say there's still a place for things like for it. You know,
the
it's,
update was certainly very solid for it, making it a lot.
Plus extensive tree changes to accommodate certain stuff, like more rage availability, more mana availability, and all that on the bottom of the tree.
some of those like meta mods and some of the more crazy things are a little bit, you know.
For me, though, it wasn't about so much how much complicated it was, and it was more about the like just getting so many corpses, trading for so many corpses, right?
Sure. Yes, fewer, more impactful ones would have been a lot better. Yeah, you ended up getting a lot. That's partly due to the Atlas tree passives, which was a mistake. Straight up, goodbye, they're gone.
Yeah.
If it was to redo,
Experiment, done.
yeah, yep, 100% experiment. They're no longer there. Everyone saw that as an Atlas tree tax.
Yeah.
Yep, it was. You could have argued making them way weaker would have mitigated that.
But then
Whatever.
why?
The original intention of it was like, okay, we want these keystones because it allows people to change behavior. And I think if we are to see that again, we would have that. We'd have introduced ways for people to change the behavior, but not invest into the increases and more corpses and all of that because
E.T. Contagion comes back. I don't
felt
know.
mandatory. And it often
you could
will when you
always
have the
play
league
it,
in
no?
every single area. And so, yeah, that was a pretty big contributor towards this problem.
It felt like the opposite of what we were talking about with Gold, where Gold allows you to turn like user experience friction into gameplay friction. It was the opposite, where it was all user experience friction.
Patch
This
notes when
was about
Q&A is
trading
over,
with
it's
a ton of
always
non-responding
been.
people for corpses.
Yep, well, yep, sure.
40 times per craft.
We also obviously made a lot of changes to that early as well.
Chainhawk
in the
sounds
league,
like a
but,
viable plan, honestly.
Still, it was like, you know, I remember Ziz messaged me at one point and it's just like, oh my god, the amount of quad tabs I need to hold all these corpses, and I'm just like feeling real sad about it. It's not like, you know, that was the intention by any means. So yeah, I didn't quite hit the mark for sure.
Didn't hit the mark?
Lessons learned
Next
for
one, eh?
sure. Yeah.
All right, cool. The All Flames had a bit more mixed positive and negative. Like, it was definitely a very cool added layer of map customization, but it was not optional, and that was definitely the concern we had going into it. And it also added just that extra layer of work that you have to do before you can start playing, which, you know, PoE has a fair bit of. And
For sure. And again, we with the, I mean, the league being like, something you do have to generally engage with before doing areas. It's again that kind of X factor that makes a league different and makes it feel different. But at the end of the day, probably was a little bit too much annoyance to have to do this thing every single area. But it's certainly we like to try these things out here and there. Some people probably thoroughly enjoyed engaging with that stuff, of course. And I mean, end of the day, leagues are never going to really be for everyone. They're always going to have some amount of people who aren't really into it. But look, we tried something new. We always do like to try something new when it comes to these leagues, and a lot of people did enjoy various elements of it. Some of it doesn't hit. That's all right. Like, we don't do it again, right? Like, that's part of it. And this is a lesson learned every single league, right? There are always elements of leagues that don't work. There are elements we learn from. There are elements we don't repeat. And then we take often what we can do is take the stuff that is good, that is fun, and find a way to integrate it into the game later. And now the core game experience is overall better as a result of us, learning from all the stuff.
Keep the experiments going. Keep going wild with it. We're going to go rapid fire now so people can get their 30,000 patch notes, their record-setting patch notes very soon here. So we had finally the much-awaited massive melee changes. What was the big thing that led to you guys pulling the trigger on this issue? Some melee stuff.
Ultimately, the community. People wanted it. What
was the key change that you kind of needed, maybe to get figured out?
The one that I remember us walking through was there was kind of we made a document of okay, what are the things that a melee build currently mandatorily needs to know to do in order to be viable, and effectively we had all these multipliers, and if you didn't know to do them, then you just sucked.
It's bad. Yeah.
And so effectively we needed to do something about that to make it so that just hit things is a more viable path. I think that's just really looking at that, and so that hence why you have the removal of melee totems and so on. Honestly, even I was kind of shocked that Mark was let's just straight up remove them. I know we talked for a little bit about maybe there's some way to make it so that you don't, the builds that use them aren't the same as melee builds or something, but in the end it was just you know what, we'll go clean slate, and we'll try to make sure let's just get rid of any of these barriers, and I think that was probably the right choice.
I just want you to hit things with your weapon, or monsters or the ground with your weapon, and things die, and you're not having don't get me wrong. I want there to be secondary axes of skills that are often skill involved. You do have to use them. I don't just want it to be that you have 1 6-link and every single other gem slot is empty. It should be that there are these other axes, but I also want you to be able to choose whether or not which ones you use, which ones you invest into the tree. Whereas a lot of what was happening before is something is often either too powerful that you feel like you have to use it, and all of a sudden now every single build is using this exact same thing, and every single build feels so similar.
Yeah.
Whereas really the way that should ideally work is something is much weaker initially, and you have to invest into the passive tree and stuff like that to make it good enough. But it means that different characters will have different secondary specializations, and you'll find a lot of these, something like tinctures, something like retaliation skills, they're going to be quite polarizing. People are going to love them or hate them, and that's okay. That's good. And it means that you get these differences in builds where you are actually speccing into and using these secondary things. But the one other main thing is I really want it to be less unique item-driven mandatory things, right? I don't want uniques to suck, don't get me wrong. I just want it to be that it's in order to do X, Y, and Z, I must be using this, and now I'm considered viable by the game's standards,
like build checklist thing that we...
Yeah, it's gone a little bit too far. And so we're bringing a lot of these mechanics to the forefront on the passive tree, because that is one way place. And of course, by having more... considering when you've got this league, you're going to have runesmithing, you've got the obviously quality changes applies to unique, you've got the new modifiers on rare items, you've got we haven't buffed the life on every unique, we've buffed it on Kelms. That's it, right? So all uniques proportionally just got worse to rare items, quite intentionally, so that rare item, and it's not it's not just hiding behind all these things you got to learn and wiki and do all of that. So it should be that you can get further without having to have extreme specialized knowledge, especially with melee this time round. and on top of that, like bringing a lot of these hidden mechanics that were like hard to figure out way more to the foreground,
Cyclone build.
they're just more obvious and you can figure them out. And also just hit things and they die, and not feel so like, okay, I'm hitting things and they're not dying, but now I do this thing and combine this and this and this and this and this, and now things get hit and die. That is still there, and that will allow you to go even further and even more efficiently, and thus get more items and more power, of course, right? We're not dumbing things down. The intention is just to make it that, like, if you aren't doing all of these things, you're not just absolute garbage, you know?
Well, playing devil's advocate a little bit, the new
Make
banners...
melee skills good.
Is that kind of just melee totems again?
I mean, not in this... Okay, they're not as powerful implicitly. They are... It depends on what you want to call it. You can look at the totems from a perspective of, yes, the busy work side of things, of I'm having to do this thing every so often, sure. But it's also not like, if you don't use them, it's not like you're bad, right? You can get damage from so many places. Only one of the banners is giving damage. It's giving a lot less damage. In order to make banners really good, you have to spec into a lot of them onto the tree. They are still kind of good. I do expect a lot of melee characters still to be using them. And I do like the idea that there is... skill involved as to thinking, when should I use them?
They're not an always up thing like the totems were, which is the biggest issue with them.
Unless you invest into them, in which case, so one of the passives that was shown is that banner effects linger for X seconds. They automatically pick up when you exit the radius, so you can place them down and then just sprint, and then you get the effect for seconds, and then you can place it again. And sure, yeah, it might end up being like on rotation, it's being used for some builds, and on others they're being way more tactical with it, doing it during a breach and during this, but on regular monster to monster clearing they're not. Kind of want it to be... I feel like you have a lot more agency with banners, and yeah. The other thing, of course, being getting rid of, even like Berserk, we're getting rid of a lot of the extreme high power mandatory things that if you were a player who didn't know about it, all of a sudden you're not, considered viable. And the one other thing we've done there, I know we said rapid fire, but don't worry, it's part of the question.
People can wait.
We've made sure to we've got spreadsheets out the wazoo of like experience per hour testing. We've got time testing. We've got like one of the people probably see him takes ages, always on the ladder, freaking winning things here and there. He has been sitting there running, literally doing races, technically with every single class, for the last 3 months, probably straight. Every single waking minute, he is playing a different character, writing down times to kill Brutus, time to kill this, time to get to this, time to do this, XP per hours everywhere, what variables make the most difference. And we've taken all of that data and gone and been like, all right, these are the outliers on the bottom, these are the outliers on the top. Let's find out where the thing should sit. And generally, it's now meant to be, if you are a character with a melee character, and let's say you've got 70th percentile gear, and there's a caster next to you that has 70th percentile gear, if you can maintain... a melee character is generally meant to be stronger and more efficient at that point, of course, but it is easier to take damage and harder to maintain damage uptime as a result. So if you can overcome those two axes, a melee character with equivalent gear should be better than any other character.
In a better player's hands.
Yes, and then a better player can obviously seize that even better and take that even further.
Okay. I really hope that does work out for them. That sounds amazing.
So we've got new item bases going into much higher level maps and stuff like that as well. What kind of led to that change there? Just making rares matter again?
Making rares matter again is one thing, but also it's, again, adding that very obvious way to keep getting upgrades throughout endgame. Honestly, given how long endgame takes and how much of an integral part of it is, the amount of base types introduced there, sure, we had steel rings and two-tone boots, but they didn't really make a huge difference.
Yep.
So we're just adding more here. It is more clear. If you are struggling in yellow maps, you have something you can try and get now to make that easier for yourself. If you're struggling in red maps, you have these obvious things that are this will be an upgrade for me. Let me actually try and do it. Obviously just on the defensive axis for now, so you can maybe focus a little bit more of your passives into damage, along with all the new defensive tools. But yes, primarily it is a more obvious, here's a way that you can upgrade your character. And of course for high-end players, it's a new thing to strive for, to push their character further than ever before. I wouldn't say this specific direct goal is get rid of unique items. That is just a happy side effect of, rare items mattering more once again.
All right. We'll wrap up pretty much there. We've got lots of new leagues coming back this time. Is there any other ones you're looking forward to? I know people have been asking about the Trial of the Ancients as well, whether that sort of stuff's coming back.
Trial of the Ancestors, probably not. Maybe for I don't know. You never know with these things. If you had asked me Sentinel, I would have said no.
Yeah.
And now it is, so you never know with these things.
I thought Toto was in PoE
I'd say
too.
there's no current plans.
Isn't that what
but
Chris said?
Who knows? Things change every week around here.
Guys, this was a massive Q&A. I'm exhausted. It's awesome. Let's go take a break and let people read some patch notes. And there'll be an FAQ news post wrapping up some of the questions from this, but also ones that we didn't get a chance to get around to. So you guys will be able to answer some of them there and read some of those.
Classic Ziggy. I'm exhausted.
Jonathan, thank you very much.
After all the
Thank you,
rapping.
and good luck to everyone reading those patch notes.
Yeah, good luck.
It'll take a while.
Yeah.
We considered doing audiobook versions of them in the past, but I'm not going to be sitting there. I would have to
That's
be
what
reading
streamers
that.
are for.
Yeah.
Pick your favorite streamer. Remind them to drink lots of water and enjoy.
I
folks.
wish,
But
dude.
that's it
I'm
for now.
falling
Thanks
asleep,
for
dude. I
watching, folks.
can't. I'm so done.
you.
I need to get up really early tomorrow because I'm traveling by train. And they're the longest patch notes ever, dude. I mean, we could do like a stream at some point doing them, but I can't possibly do it now. But yeah, like, just let me know your thoughts. Let's do a quick sum up, roundup. What do you guys think? Out of 10. Where we at? Out of 10. Bath, wine, and patch notes. Were you gonna sit in the bath and you're gonna drink the wine and read the patch notes at the same time? 3 out of 10 for you? Melee out of 10? Pog out of 10? Okay, I'll go 9 out of 10. This definitely is 9 out of 10, realistically, right? I think last time I think for Necropolis I was like 10 out of 10 because I thought it was hitting all the marks, but I completely misunderstood it. Let's quickly check this. Tinctures added, retaliation, this. It's a lot of stuff. Yeah. I am going to retire. I had a journey booked. I'm gonna be gone for the weekend until Tuesday. But I'll be back. And while I'm on the journey, I'll use the electronic communications to stay in touch. And I'll be sharing the podcast dates soon. I'll be hopefully be able to put some episodes together. And yeah, internship is over. For those of you who missed that in the beginning, I don't know whether I even talked about it, but I'm most likely going to start the apprenticeship 1st of August. And yeah, so I'm hyped for that. Like I said, a little bit less time to do content, but you know, it's gonna be better and it's gonna be greater overall. But yeah, honestly, like I can't start the patch notes because it's gonna be 2 hours and I can't do that. It's already midnight, and I gotta get up at like 6, and I still have to do some things here. So. Plus, like, the thing is, I wouldn't be a good, I don't know, like, my eyes are falling closed, and I'm like, ugh. But it was really fun watching the announcement with you, and I'm hyped for the league, and I got the rest of the month off, right? So, like, once I come back on Tuesday, we'll be doing full-time content for the end of the month, pretty much, right? Like, maybe I'll take a day off or 2 out of all those days, but probably not between league start and end of the month. So we'll see. It's gonna be great. But yeah, you guys have fun reading patch notes with Baylor Mage, and can't wait to catch up when I come back. Peace, guys. Thanks, everyone.
I know a lot of people want to send blankets or water. Just send your cash.